Hello, good morning. Thank you very much for keeping your dials here on your Joy News channel, on Multi-TV, and also on Joy 99.7 FM. We apologize sincerely for the late start. We've just had a little technical challenge, but thankfully that is over. Once again, I say welcome. My name is Samson Ladi Anyene, and this is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. Now, what are we doing today? The economy is in trouble. That's our complaint. We get a budget that rises to the challenge to align stuff to meet key priorities. The opposition says it is uninspiring, visionless, blah, blah. The president empathizes with us, but how come he seems to get little praise for the historic act, with some saying the 10% salary cut is just another tiny dynamite, a tiny dynamite stick thrown into the nuclear bomb that is Ghana's economy. Stop this fraudulent sale, did I shout? But why is a single private individual, is it a single private individual who is in court to fight it, when it is the whole minority in parliament that has boldly, conclusively declared the sale of Merchant Bank to Fortis a scam? Where is the evidence? We'll find out. And Justice Dateba to probe real Victoria's Secret or idle girls' gossip of empty rumor of galamsey justice for John Mahama against Akufo-Addo. And to what end, really? Well, these are the three big issues that made the headlines and continue to hit the front screens, and we will be looking at this morning. We'll be right back after this quick break. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show, and this morning we are asking very simple questions. The rising to the challenge budgets. What do you like or dislike about it? And why is it that the 10% executive salary cut apparently is not receiving the deserving praise? You will like us to know what you think about all of that is going on about it. 1422 is the text line. You can also post a comment on our Facebook wall. Merchant Bank sale, a scam? That's what the opposition claims. Where is the evidence? We'd like to see that. And again, Justice Dateba probe. To what end? To what end? We will look at all of these matters. And we'd like to meet my guest for today. From my extreme left, Fifi Kwete. Good morning and welcome to you. He is a Member of Parliament and is the Minister of State at the Presidency in charge of financial and allied institutions. Good morning and welcome to the show, Fifi.
Good morning.
Right. And then Dr. Anthony Akuto Osei is a former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, and you're presently the ranking member on the Finance Committee in Parliament. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Omani Buama, he is the Communications Minister. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you. Great to have you. And Abdul Malik Kwiku Baku Jr., he's the Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. He's a regular panelist. Abdul Malik, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great, gentlemen. We're starting straight away with the budget. It's a budget that has been christened Rising to the Challenge, realigning the budget to, is it key national priorities? Key national priorities. I'd like to do a quick round of 5 minutes each from the gentlemen, and they will tell us their general views of the budgets, what they like, what they don't like, and then we'll come and then we'll zero in on specific aspects that they will have to deal with, so all of us can digest it properly. Now, this show is live on over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. You are also listening and watching us at myjoyonline.com and multitvworld/streams. If you're watching us in London or in Europe, elsewhere in Europe, you are on the ABN TV Sky channel 260. Thank you very much indeed. The text line is 1422, and you can post your comments on our Facebook wall. We'll share them with the rest of the world. Also, you can send us your messages through Newsfile at myjoyonline.com. And the show is brought to you by MTN everywhere you go. Okay, and I know MTN, you're aware of my complaints. My messages, my credits. I bought credits and they were all within minutes stolen from me. I need them back. Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature. Valex Lease Equipment, that's your affordable document management solutions company. And Latida, they are responsible for what I'm wearing. You need the best and cheapest in African wear. Fifi, I'll start with you. 5 minutes. Let's look at broadly the budget. How does it sound?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning to your very many viewers and listeners at the same time. I think generally, after what you can only describe as a very difficult financial year, it's heartening to know that the presentation of the budget indicates that the growth of Ghana's economy continues to be relatively strong if you compare it to what is happening in sub-Saharan Africa, where growth generally is doing an average of about 4.9%. What compares among even oil-producing countries, where average growth is about 5.3%. And the rest of the world that is really growing at about 3.3%. To think that in spite of all these difficulties, we are still looking at a growth of over 7%, 7.4% estimated, can only be a source of very good news for the country. Also to indicate that a number of the challenges, that have faces, especially challenges that have to do with what can only be described as a very huge albatross that the public sector wage has constituted. The fact that we clearly are indicating through this budget that we want to rise to the challenge of ensuring that it does not remain at the unsustainable level it is at the moment. That we need to find ways of freeing resources in order to be able to tackle the much needed infrastructural deficit that we have as a country, which infrastructure deficit will help us to be able to accelerate growth, which growth will be able to raise levels of income and in the process help us to be able to raise the levels of, raise our people out of poverty and so on. So you clearly will see that much as challenges remain, this budget clearly is signaling that we still are pretty much on course as far as economic development is concerned. Our medium-term prospects continue to be very, very good, but we need to be able to, as it were, rise out of the fiscal challenges that we have faced over the last year in order for us to be able to have a faster progress over the next few years. So in short terms, I would say really it's a budget that clearly is signaling a certain need for realignment in order for us to focus on key national priorities. So some of those details in terms of the realignment, I'm sure when the opportunity comes again, we can go into them in order to be able to exhaust them far more. And I think really you just mentioned, for example, initiatives such as what I call the symbolic voluntary 10% pay cut is one of those efforts to signal the need for us as a country to confront this real difficulty and understand that sacrifices need to be made. It's not so much the essence; it's much more of the signal that is being given. That a country need not to run away from this difficulty and find ways in which we can tackle it more.
Great, thank you very much. And he's done that in 3 minutes. I'm sure we can all do that and then come and look at it properly. Now, in 3 minutes also, if you can tell me your general view of the budget.
Thank you very much, and good morning to your various listeners and viewers. Usually, when you want to see the budget for the incoming year, you ought to see what happened in the previous year.
Right.
That will give you some indication on what is doable in the following year. So let me quickly say that, as my good friend has said, by now everybody agrees that 2013 has been a very, very difficult year. Very, very difficult year. Why? The basic thing is that the revenue targets have all been missed. When you miss revenue targets and you are unable to cut back on expenditure, you end up in what we call a fiscal mess. So 2013 it hasn't been very good. Public debt has risen to levels that are not comfortable. More importantly,
levels that you say is historic.
It's 23 billion, going about $4 billion in 1 year. It's not very good. But it's not just that the stock has risen. It's the associated debt service, which is now consuming almost 18% of our resources. And that is the thing that we have to watch. We've been there before. That's how we went to HIPIC. So anytime you borrow more and you have to spend more money to service it, you don't have much room to do capital. In fact, now it is even higher than the capital expenditure. So, as Fifi said, we need to watch our growth rate. Yes, it's higher than most sub-Saharan African countries, but if you take out 2011, when oil production went up significantly, we've gone down since 2008, where we hit 8.4 to 4 to 8 to 7.4. So we need to watch to see what is happening. Basically, the problem has been agric. We need to find out how we can bring up agric. It's not surprising that the deficit is at 10.2. I think by the time they revise it, it will be higher. And it's a challenge going from 12% to the new target of 8.5. It's going to be very difficult. Having said that, however, there are one or two things that signal, I think it's good about the budget. The contingency fund, for the first time, is being created. Right. I think it's a novelty. We've been talking about this for a long time. So my only problem is that the amount that is being proposed is too small. So Parliament will have to adjust that. Secondly, after several questions raised by me, the minister was able to present the full reports on the oil revenues. Last year, it wasn't very good. And this year, he almost didn't do it until we cautioned that the law required that. And I've read it. We'll come back later to look at some issues with it. Finally, the principle of coming up with a GIF fund is something that in principle is good. When we get a bill, we have to look at the details to make sure that it is managed properly. After all, we've had a road fund, which is also a sort of infrastructure fund. If you don't manage it carefully, we can get in trouble, because they propose to put a lot of money in there. So Parliament must be sure that those monies are used for the purpose. So in general terms, these are my preliminary comments on the budget. Okay.
Now, Dr. Boama, looking at it from a perspective that is obviously different from the two of them, looking at it purely from an economist's perspective, you looking at it as yes.
In economics.
Yes, what do you say?
Yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity, and a very good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers. I want to express the condolences of the NDC family and government to the family of Eben Duncan, who is being buried today at Anumabo. Also, you raised the issue about you bought some credits.
Yes. I understand they say they have some challenges.
They just
I don't really care about that. All I want is my credit back. My money.
Any other person who has experienced this kind of ordeal should first take up the issue with the service provider. If you are not satisfied, you can seek redress through telephone number 0307 011 419 at the NCA. Right. So first, seek redress. If you are not able to have a satisfactory response, ensure that you escalate the issue to the NCA through 0307 011 419. My views as a layperson on the budget, general views, very, very elementary. I think that this is a budget of hope. a budget that is truly going to transform the foundations of how we have run our business as a country. And I say this because if you look at the demand side, almost everywhere that you go to as a minister or as a government appointee, the request for roads, request for potable drinking water, request for adequate educational infrastructure, health infrastructure, and all that, coupled with the request for even increases in compensation of public sector workers, keep on coming up.
All right.
And so with this kind of challenge that we are facing as a country, as a government, how do we respond to it? It is also coupled with the fact that we are no longer a least developed country. We have moved into the lower middle income status, even though we are transitioning there. Our target is not to drop into the LDCs any longer. We aim to move up to the middle of the middle and then even move up further. As a result of this, I will share a personal experience. About 3 months ago, I had gone to the World Bank headquarters in Washington to negotiate the e-transform project, $97 million. And this was the first time that Ghana was hit with the implications of our lower middle income status when it comes to the terms of how the World Bank is going to deal with us. As soon as they slotted in Ghana, that was when we were negotiating the financing agreement. Then they said, your terms have changed. Your maturity period is no longer going to be 40 years. It's going to be between 20 and 25 years. The interest rates have gone up and all that. I said, wait a minute. I know that, yes, we are no longer an LDC. We are a lower middle income country. But let's get back to the Ministry of Finance, because I know that we are also having discussions with the World Bank on this issue, so that is there a way that they can give us
like
some
getting a promotion
concessions?
You don't want.
Kind of. So I'm trying to describe the challenge. Apart from the roads, the water, whatever that we are asking for. At the international level also, this is the way that we are being looked at. So though we have been promoted, lower middle income country, the responsibilities that come with it, all of a sudden your maturity period has been dropped from between 20 and 25 years, between 40 years to 20 and 25 years. You have to grapple with this. I thought the strategy was going to work, but hey, it didn't. And here we are, when it was approved, they stuck to our status as a lower middle income country. The interest rates have gone. What that means is that subsequently, any further engagement that we are going to have with the World Bank will have to fall within.
That's
this
rather
kind of
revealing and interesting aspects of the whole discussion. Abdul Malik?
Well. You know, to be honest with you, I'm somewhat cynical. And I think I should be excused for that. And so one would want to wait to see how this budget materializes in terms of its objectives. This is because it's been consistent that we've had some budgets.
At least some taxes have been removed.
Oh, I told you were suggesting we'll deal with specifics.
Yes.
So I'm restrained, but I'm giving a very general reaction. And I'm saying that I'm cynical because there isn't enough to show that recent budgets really have borne fruit the way we anticipated. And so I can be excused for that. There are very interesting aspects of the budget which we can bring to bear when it comes to the specific discussions. But this is the way my attitude is at this moment.
Right.
When we come to the specifics, I have something to say.
Thank you very much. And I must also mention that this show is sponsored also by Errata Motors. They have the very best in any type of vehicle that you're looking for, and good prices as well. Just get to East Legon and you'll find them right there around the Lagos Avenue. Now, Doc, tell me, the budget is supposed to respond to challenges. You spoke about the need to look back and ask ourselves how much was achieved with the 2013 budget, and then look forward to this budget and tell ourselves what is happening. Asking from this particular budget, how do you see government dealing with the high budget deficit caused by the overruns? And if you read, I think, paragraph 6 of the budget speech, not the highlight, just the budget speech, paragraph 6. Okay, I'm far away from it, but this is where you have, let me just go to it quickly. Okay, paragraph 6.
Stabilize the budget and consolidate.
Right, right. Mr. Setepe says that, Mr. Speaker, throughout
The year.
That's paragraph 7 I'm reading, really. It says, in the 2013 budget, one of the primary objectives of government was to deal with the high budget deficit caused by overruns that were highlighted in specific detail and explained to the House and the nation. While proposing solutions to tackle the causes of the overruns, we indicated clearly that the fundamentals of the economy were strong and the nation's medium-term prospects were also bright. Mr. Speaker, I have no reason to present a contrary view to the House at this moment. And I'm sure when you look at paragraph 10, he provides what should be some of the bold steps that are being taken to solve some of these problems. He speaks, firstly, he says, the 2012 shortfall of GH 384.1 million, that's a lot, in corporate tax from petroleum sector has been completely reversed. And the projection for 2013 now shows a positive variance. He gives the figure. Then he says, secondly, the adjustments in subsidies for petroleum products and utilities are projected to reduce the budget overrun. He goes, thirdly, talks about significant delay in and expectation in more inflows and all of that and all of that. How do you see how this budget tackles the deficit problem?
This is where I have my difficulty. Yes, the minister is trying to admit the challenges, but he's trying to camouflage it a bit. Look, if you look at the performance for 2013 and you look at the tax performance, almost every major tax type fell by at least 16%. At least. Some more. What is the cause of it? One, it's an indication that economic activity was not as robust as they thought. And two, the fundamental problem I've had with the budget since 2009 is that there's always over-optimism. We will achieve this when you know it's not a record. And going to 2014, this is where I'm going to have my difficulty. As for what has happened in 2013, it should inform the way you behave. If you go to page, if you look at the, I'll just to help you as those who have it, that is on the performance of tax revenues. You see what I'm talking about. That's on page, page 28 of the budget statement.
Right.
Look, just as a sample. Taxes on income and property fell by 19%. Personal income tax, 17%. Company taxes, 21%. VAT, 14%. Every tax type has fallen. And it's just an indication that the economy was not as robust. But that should tell the minister that when you have these challenges, then you should begin to take steps in the middle of the year to cut back. And here, they started with the so-called freeze on new projects. That will help. But one of the biggest difficulties is that wage and interest cost, you cannot do anything about it. As a result of higher borrowing, they form a huge percentage of your...
But first of all, can you explain these basics for us, give us the basics about, you talking about every tax type falling by about 16%.
Yes. So
what does that mean?
What it means is that you told us that, let me be specific. The government said that they'll raise tax revenue will be 17 billion cedis. Well, they are projecting 15 billion. So there's a shortfall of 2 billion. That is what it means. It says that either you overestimated or economic activity is bad. And so it will affect your performance.
Or a combination of
Or combination of both. And basically, it is both. But it starts with the assumptions that you make earlier. If you are overly optimistic, then, if you go to 2009, we've had this pattern. So the minister should begin to look at it carefully. Whoever is doing the estimation must be very careful.
So what does that scenario mean
It means
for
that
the ordinary Ghanaian?
This is why we had a challenging year, as he said. This is why Parliament even says we are cash-strapped. This is why every ministry is saying we are cash-strapped, because the revenues, they don't come. And if they don't come, you don't spend. It's also an indication that your revenue agencies need to be talked to. If there are leakages, you need to close the gaps. Why is it that just in 2013, you are performing so poorly on revenue? So it raises questions as to the management of the revenue agencies. Then you go to the other side of the equation, expenditure. Let me give you a good example where I'm so surprised. You look in the budget statement, it tells you that we expect to pay 142 billion in arrears. That's the estimate. You end up so far paying, by the end of September, you end up paying about 1 billion. Now, I ask myself, who is doing the estimation and having us miss this by a wide margin? It doesn't help for good planning. In fact, they claim they are going to end up paying an overrun of almost 2 billion, 1.9. Now, ab initio, it means that something is wrong. As for the interest payments, I'm surprised that they are surprised.
It means something is wrong and that someone is not doing something right.
Definitely, and the minister should be talking to. I mean, you tell me I'm going to pay 140 billion. Sorry, 140 million. Now I end up paying 1.9 billion. That's about 1.5 billion overrun. So how do you fill the gap? Already my revenues are coming low, and then I go over by that much. Look at the interest payments. They project. We are told, we only pay 3.1 billion. We end up paying 4.4 billion. That's 1.1 billion over. So already between the interest and wages, you have a 2 billion shortfall. How are you going to fill it? So when we see the challenges in all the ministries, it's not surprising because our estimation, I'm saying that this has been there from day one. So it is not surprising. That is why the deficit is so big. That's why.
Who or what is chiefly to blame for that development?
Two things. Either whoever is doing the estimation is not being overly truthful, or they don't really know what they're doing well, or a combination of both. That is because you cannot miss it by 1.5 billion. It is not unacceptable.
I see.
And so we need to pay attention to the inflation.
Right. But the important thing also to note is that the minister now outlines how this will be tackled.
That's going on to 2014.
That is so.
But you see that the same thing has been repeated. If you go to look at the estimation of revenue, that same systemic overestimation of revenue and underestimation of expenditure is still there. So as far as I'm concerned, it hasn't gone away.
I see.
I mean, if you are spending as much on interest as you are spending on capital expenditure, how do you expect to grow? So it's not surprising that growth is 7.4. The debt, we need to be careful. See, when we start talking about it, people say, lower middle income come through. Our threshold is 60%. We have not reached there yet. You are borrowing to pay, not to grow. You are borrowing to pay interest. You cannot continue that forever. From January to August 2013, every month, government borrowed 1.1 billion cedis from the domestic economy. What it means is that businesses cannot get money to do business. Interest rates are high, between 20 and 23% on government borrowing. That is not helpful to us. So we need to watch our borrowing profile. For me, one of the biggest challenges I have is the use of oil revenues. 2012, we still have not solved the problem. A good example is that government spent 111 million cedis on capacity building. Capacity building. As I sit here,
Which year?
2012.
Oh, you're going back to 2012.
No, I'm coming forward. But you need to start there. We've asked government to explain how the money was used. As I sit here, it has not come to committee. As I sit here. Now, we've been given a report for 2013, and capacity building is big. Apart from that, the details of the expenditures have not been given to us.
This time around, do you remember how much will go into capacity building?
Yes. About 60-something. But I think it's about 60-something. I'll get it for you. But what is that?
So comparatively, that is fair?
The first, let's identify what the 1111 was for. Whose capacity were we building? And really, why must we be doing that? Yeah. 60 capacity building, 59, 60 million cities this year, 2013. Now, what are we doing there? Exactly what do we mean by capacity building? I'm convinced that until we get into the details, we should not allocate anything for 2014.
So what's your suspicion? This is not really for capacity building, but for what?
My hunch is that the 11 million cannot be identified, so it's been treated as a residual. That's my hunch. And we are yet to receive the information. Let's spend the money properly on the infrastructure gaps that we need. I don't have any difficulty with that. And in fact, here they are trying to correct it in 2014, which is okay. But people still need to know what the money is being spent on. Agric. No, sorry. Actually, I gave you. I'm sorry. The 60 was 2014. Sorry. Let me go to. Because there's a factor in
that's right, because I was asking about 2014.
Yes,
really.
yes. That's what you were asking for.
Yes, I was asking for 2014.
You need to know, in 2013, something strange happened. And it's an indication that we are also not prioritizing well. Agric, which is supposed to be a very big sector of our economy, only received 4 million cedis in oil revenues. 4 million cedis. I mean, if it's such an important part of our economy, how can we be putting this small amount there? Here you go. Agric, 2013, 4 million cedis. Capacity building, 32 million cedis. I mean, you are trying to realign to your national priorities. Is that capacity building better than Agric? 4 million. When we are spending 111 million earlier on capacity building, that is a challenge. And I worry about that because oil is so important. We are not going to have oil forever. So Ghana must need to utilize it properly.
Right. Okay, take a breather there, and I'll go to Fifi Kuti at this point. The text line again is 1422. Let your messages come in. Let your questions also come in to the minister and the former minister. They have the capacity to be able to respond to them for you in the most appropriate manner. And also you can post your comments on our Facebook wall, and also send them to newsfile@myjoyonline.com. Yes, Fifi, you've heard Dr. Koto say?
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much. As I said earlier, we obviously had a difficult year. But we need to explain exactly the causes of that difficulty. 2012 clearly saw a big budget deficit, But the truth of the matter is this: if you analyze the budget deficit properly, for 2012, what you realize is that about 93% of that budget overrun came purely because of the need to cater for the real needs of the people of Ghana. About 50% of that budget overrun came on wages and salaries that clearly needed to support public sector workers of Ghana. Additional 18% of it came because of the shortfall that we had from the petroleum corporate income tax. Now, you had utilities and subsidies that accounted for nearly 10% of that. Then you also had higher interest costs, and that was accounting for about 6.2% of that. Now, so sometimes when the impression gets given, as if that budget deficit or the high overrun in 2012 was simply because government decided to be irresponsible or decided to be reckless, is far from the truth. As I just enumerated, issues that had to do with paying workers of the country, issues that had to do with subsidies on utilities and fuel for the people of Ghana cannot in any way be described as irresponsible or reckless. If you had difficulties that came because of shortfall in grants, which invariably in election years tend to be the case, because in election year, a lot of partners tend to be pretty hesitant. Historically, that has been the case. We had a situation relating to shortfall in petroleum corporate income tax in 2012. The situation in 2013 has been a remarkable improvement. There are years like that you have some of that difficulty. You make projections, and some of the projections don't happen. It's not limited at all to Ghana. IMF makes projections and misses it. The World Bank makes projections, misses it. I mean, the most savvy financial analysts make projections and they miss it. 2008, the global crisis that happened, none of the global analysts could have been able to predict the scale of what was going to happen. So it's not anything extraordinary at all in terms of making projections and sometimes not meeting it. But I'm saying, really, if you look at the component of that 2012 deficit, you were looking at things that clearly had to do with the genuine interest of the people of Ghana. I've always had occasion to explain that the quantum of the deficit is one issue. The effect of that deficit on the real economy is another issue. And sometimes we tend to just look at the quantum, but we don't need to look at the quantum per se. We need to look at the real effect. 2009, the effect we saw from the spillover that happened in 2008 were far, far, far more deleterious to the economy of Ghana than what we saw in 2013. In 2009, you were having situations where, for the first time, I mean, for many years, reserves were being run down to as low as 1.8 months of import cover. CD was depreciating at a rate of about 3% on a monthly basis, which was pretty difficult. Inflation had taken a quick movement from the 18% to 12% and was heading towards 21 plus, towards 22. You had crises that were bringing non-performing loans in the banking sector to as high as about 21, 22%. Foreign portfolio investors were really losing confidence, were dropping, disinvesting with the speed of lightning. Those clearly were difficulties. In 2013, in spite of the budget deficit, you see in terms of the real numbers, we have not had the kind of effect that we saw in 2009. So that's not to excuse the deficit, but to explain that in terms of its effect, it's not been the same at all. And also to explain that the deficit in 2013 was not on account of recklessness. It was the real needs for the people of Ghana in terms of salaries, in terms of fuel and subsidies that had to be done. And of course, shortfall.
Needs that you indicate were unpredictable.
Yeah, that's why you could not always.
Not even the best economists could have
you could not
predicted
always. You could not always.
Some would say that is a very easy excuse out of the developments that's being blamed on.
But that's a reality.
Yeah.
That's a reality that you cannot always predict accurately what is going to happen. But now let's come to 2013. It is true that in 2013 we still have not been able to meet some of the estimates. He particularly mentioned about revenue. Now we need to appreciate that prior to 2010, we're looking at an annual public sector wage envelope of about 2.5 billion. 2.5 billion. As we speak, if you add arrears that are being cleared out of the single spine, for this year, we are looking at an estimated close to 10 billion in terms of public sector wage envelope. Now just look at the difference. 2.5 billion prior to 2010 single spine, and now we are looking at about 10 billion. And that's just talking about wages and salaries. I've not even talked about allowances. I've not talked about pensions and the total that forms compensation. That's pretty difficult. Now, when you have such a huge expenditure item, it definitely leaves very little room for you not to do everything possible to want to raise the revenues that you want to raise.
But if that was, as you say, connected to the implementation of the single spine, that was planned. So what was the plan? that was not an unpredictable situation.
Samson, I would appreciate if you allow me to develop my point. What you're doing really is disruptive. I'm building a point, and it's important for the public out there to hear me.
Don't worry, go on.
Now, so the point I'm making is this, that clearly it means you need to make a lot of effort to be able to raise revenues in order to be able to meet some of these higher expenditures. And when you do so, it means that you reduce the deficit, because you complain also about debt. The debt is coming really because the revenues are not able to rise to the level needed by this particularly huge expenditure item. Now, what you do is really want to put as much pressure on your revenue agencies as possible. And in so doing, what you really do is simple. You know, for instance, that listen, it's not going to be that easy, but you still try to say, listen, do the best you can, because we need to be able to raise internal revenue. That will be able to help us pay.
Well, what do you say to those who say, look, you had the benefit of oil money that could help you to take care of other issues, because oil money is not supposed to be used to pay salaries, and so you had the best advantage to plan the implementation properly and to stop this blame on the single spine?
We are not blaming single spine. We are stating the reality. And the reality is that you have to raise in the region of about 10 billion on an annual basis to pay salaries of your workers. It's not a blame, it's the reality.
Right.
It means, therefore, you need to be able to raise revenue. In the past, you were having to raise revenue to meet 2.5 billion. Now you are looking to raise revenue to meet, just for wages and salaries and the arrears of it, almost 10 billion. That's the reality. What it simply means is that revenues clearly must be able to rise to the challenge. And it's not that easy to be able to do so, especially in 2013, when you obviously were having also, in addition to this difficulty, you are coming with a carryover of an energy crisis. An energy crisis that itself has a slowdown effect on the economy. And worse than that, you are having a situation where our friends decided to go on a totally needless petition after they had been comprehensively beaten in an election.
The President, John Mahama, disagrees with you when he says it's a needless petition.
I said my view is that it's a totally needless petition. The President obviously is being very charitable. He's a very charitable man. I like to be extremely as it is. And they know that it's needless. They lost first round election. They lost 8 regions out of 10. They lost parliamentary, just like it is in the history of Ghana.
The Supreme Court verdict doesn't show that it was needless.
It was needed. Totally needed.
It was almost tired.
He brought in his wake. What did he bring in his wake? He brought a lot of uncertainty. A lot of investors obviously were not sure what was going to go on. So clearly people held back, and that has effects on the economy in terms of slowdown by itself. But in spite of all that, I must say that being able to still, in the midst of all that, to bring down the deficit from what it was, 12%, to, of course, we don't think we can meet the target of 9%, but to bring it down even from 12% to possibly a little higher than 10%, is remarkable given the situation we've had. Now, I said earlier that the most important consideration, however, have to do with growth. Because you see, you need to be able to look at what is happening to the country in terms of growth. You're looking at a country, if you take out the spike that we had in 2011 as a result of their own set of oil production, which took the growth to 14.4. He actually created the impression as though what it is we have now is should I call it a remarkable reduction, but that's not what it's for. Anyone who knows that you have spikes, and those spikes are not the normal trend. What it is we have, which is about the 8%, 7 to 8% average growth, is really what the economy of Ghana is. That's itself is good.
Right.
It's important for us to continue working towards pushing that growth. Agriculture has performed much better in 2013 than it did in both 2011 and 2012, which is very important. Services continue to do well. Industry continue to perform. So generally, you will see that in spite of the challenges, we clearly are taking steps to bring about the proper realignment.
Now pause there for me briefly. This is Newsfile. That's your most authoritative news analysis show. And let me tell you that Vital Mineral Water is full of essential minerals that revitalizes your body. Its mineral content is not artificially infused, but tapped from a depth of 200 feet and bottled at source using a world-class technology that employs a fully backward integrated system. Makes Vital Mineral Water one of a kind. Vital mineral water is packaged and bottled absolutely with no human intervention, meaning risk of cross-contamination is reduced to zero. Vital mineral water is uniquely Ghanaian with a world-class touch, distinctively labeled in red and Jinyamis symbol embossed on the bottle. It's truly Ghanaian with a difference. Vital mineral water, your new experience mineral water. And as you know, the endless appreciation for their superior insurance packages by their dear customers, and Star Assurance, the prestigious CIMG General Insurance Company of the Year Award 2012, and it has once again put you above every, or puts the company above every general insurance company in Ghana in the 2012 Ghana Club 100 rankings. This is to you, their dear customers. You made it happen. Their dedicated team will continue to offer you cutting-edge insurance policies that give you peace of mind and power to achieve your set goals. They work to protect your properties and businesses when the unexpected happens. With their branches located all over Ghana, they are focused on building partnerships that last a lifetime. Talk to Star Assurance on 0302-240-632 or visit them at starassurance.com. The number is 0302-240-632. Star Assurance, your CIMG insurance company of the year. Star Assurance, your solid partner. Now, Dr. Boma, tell me, when you look at the budget, but okay, let me give you the opportunity to tell me at least two major aspects of the budget that give you a lot of hope. You spoke about the budget being a budget of hope. The minority says it's uninspiring, it is visionless.
That is expected. I mean, I would say that knowing the position that we are dealing with, maybe they were even charitable. But, I mean, to the substantive issue, challenges have been identified. Do we have solutions within the budget? Because at the end of the day, it is about the future.
Right.
It is about the future. And I am excited that solutions are being prescribed in this budget. For instance, you look at the issue of how our debt stock is. It baffles me, and it continues to baffle me, why a body like VALCO, or let's say VRA in particular, VRA, Government of Ghana will borrow on behalf of VRA, and we may decide to keep it on our debt stock for it to pile. Ghana Water Company. We borrow on behalf of Ghana Water Company, and we decide to pile it as part of our debt stock. All these, at the end of the day, will reflect to the international community and also even to economists in country, rating agencies and all that as rising debt. Again, the challenge of people continuing to ask for more roads, more water and all that. Today's daily graphic, first phase, Awoshi, Pokwasi Road, completed. But I'm sure even beyond that, others will be asking for more roads. So the demand will never dwindle. It will always keep on escalating. So how do we keep our debts sustainable whilst meeting the needs of our people? So government says, we are establishing an infrastructural fund. Which infrastructural fund, once established and it matures, can even be leveraged in terms of taking advantage of diaspora bonds and all that. irrespective of the interest rates that we have in Ghana, if they do not have confidence in that infrastructural fund, they are not going to risk their money in terms of investing in it, hoping that they may generate 8% or 9%, whereas if they invested in the UK or in the US, they may just be generating between 2% or 3%. So the infrastructure fund is one such key dimension of one locally mobilizing resources to be able to direct that resource at targeted programs. We have seen it in this country before. The Ghana Education Trust Fund has tremendously transformed educational infrastructure in our country. The National Health Insurance Levy, which was introduced, also has helped in financing the National Health Insurance Scheme that we have. And so looking at the successes of the Ghana Education Trust Fund and the National Health Insurance Levy, I have no doubt in my mind that the Infrastructure Fund, which South Africa even has a similar one, will also help in terms of bridging our infrastructure gap. And again, we can leverage that fund as a way of mobilizing further resources even from abroad. Let me cite an example. As we speak now, in terms of servicing some of our debts, we may have to send money to accounts outside the shores of Ghana, waiting to be transferred to service some of these debts. If you have an infrastructure fund, we can engineer it in such a way that even in that transition, it goes through this kind of system and it can help. One of the other ways also has to do with, yes, even if you met all your targets, and look, the World Bank, the IMF, one of the criticisms against them have had to do with even target setting. And if you read the writings of people like Guy Shen and all that, he writing in 1982, spoke eloquently about how people are sometimes overambitious or even how people are sometimes conservative in setting targets and all that. But I do not think that it is just a matter of being overambitious. That is what has led to our not meeting our target, our revenue targets for the year 2013.
Okay, you are responding directly to Dr. Anthony Ampetose here.
Fifikwete raised the specific issue of the Supreme Court case regarding the election petition. And for anyone who doubts this assertion, cast your mind back to 29th of August 2013, Judgment Day. How did we find the streets of Accra, Koforidua, Tamale, Kumasi, wherever? Dead silence. Can you cost the quantum of activity that we lost as a country? And so reduce that proportionately and standardize it over the period. You understand? So I'm here to find any serious analysis that says that, look, it contributed in no negative way to the kinds of activities that we could have had in the country. But that is not all. Which is why, if you also look at the expenditure side, in my hand here is a letter which has been written by the Acting Controller and Accountant General. And this is part of the ways that we are looking at ensuring that expenditures are tracked, much more efficiency is introduced into the system. This was written on the 14th of November 2013. Implementation of electronic funds transfer and system checks printing in the MDAs. The Controller and Accountant General's Department, under the Office of the Ministry of Finance, is rolling out the electronic funds transfer and system checks printing as a means of payment on the GIFMIS platform. To ensure smooth implementation of the two modes of payment, MDAs are hereby notified of the new electronic mode of payment. The rollout of the system is in batches of MDAs. I'll jump to this. In order to avoid the risk of duplication of payment, MDAs are required to stop the use of all manual checks once they are live on GIFMES, then moving. The Bank of Ghana has been advised to dishonor all manual checks once a notification is made by the Controller and Accountant General on deployment of the electronic funds transferred to a particular MDA. We have spoken in times past about if, let's say, a payment is authorized and then a decision is taken that that payment must not go through. By the time you manually write a letter and the letter goes through the system, if you are not careful, that payment would have been failed. With this kind of electronic system, it becomes very, very easy to track payments. Once they are codified, almost every budget line would have been codified. It is even impossible for you to go beyond the threshold of that particular budget line because it is not going to pass through.
All right.
These are some of the ways that we are looking at ensuring that we will be able to manage the other side of the equation, which is the expenditure side.
When you mentioned the courts process, I was about asking how you are accused of approbating and reprobating. You blame the petition for a lot of things within the period.
No.
And yet you still within that period talk about how Ghana issued bonds and they were highly subscribed. And someone asked the question, what was happening at the time?
Very, 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 very simple and elementary. Could it have been better? Yes.
No,
but I'll come back to
that's very simple to answer.
But
the bond issue, people were viewing this country as medium, long-term prospect. They were not looking at just the immediate situation. But we are talking about a year in which a lot of people otherwise.
But when you say they were hedging,
I'll still come back. I'll still come back to my issue.
When you are going into a bond, we are talking a 10-year bond. So you are looking at a country over a 10-year period.
Okay.
Not just an immediate.
I'll still come back to my issue.
A lot of economic activity slowed down, and we can't run away from that.
I'll still come back to my issue.
And you are ending on that point briefly for me.
Could it have been better? I insist, yes. Again, we are looking at a budget that says that we are relieving the agricultural sector of certain tax burdens so that things like agro inputs can be able to get to the end users in a better way for them to be able to enhance productivity in the agricultural sector. But you see,
you're taking away taxes that were deemed to be very bad and inhibitive of the growth of the sector
so,
in any way.
And so, in talking about the 2014 budget, these measures have been put in place. The initial one was to respond to a trend that had been identified. But you see, I am very excited that the MPP had the opportunity of governing this country between 2001 and 2008. Because there's a basis for comparison. Here we are being blamed for not meeting targets that have been set. Okay? I don't think it's a fair charge because some of these things can be very subjective. But when a government persistently in its budgets decides that even length, percentage of roads constructed, the figures will be changing. That was very worrying. I'll cite a few examples. In the 2004 budget of the MPP, paragraph 203, they said the Enyinem Konongu Road was 28% complete. You come to 2005 budget, paragraph 231, Enyinem Konongu Road, 94% complete, from 28 to 94%. Listen to 2006, whether it will move from 94 to 100 or 94 to 96. 2006 budget, Enyinem Konongu Road, 48% complete. This is measuring percentage of work done. This is not something that is shrouded in any subjectivity at all. So for me,
the basis of comparison should be to the worst situation you refer to.
No, not the worst situation. That is why I'm saying the future is very, very bright because we never said we were going to correct the deficit in 1 year.
I see.
We said the deficit will be corrected in the medium term, but then you must judge us based on the measures that we are putting in place, are they enough to be able to deal with the correction and for the transformation that we need? Yes, which is why we have dropped from the deficit of 12%, and it is very clear that the deficit is declining.
Okay.
Should we just cut out the Awoji-Pokuasi road? Should we just say that because the executive, we have decided to drop our salaries by 10%,
Dr. Manebo, we are not done. We are not done
8%.
with the subject. We'll return to it. Koku, he says this is a hopeful budget. You say you're very cynical. Is that what you said?
Yes.
About it.
I will remain cynical.
What raises cynicism about it?
Well, just take another look at the previous budget and the targets they set. Are we told if they fulfilled all those targets? Is that what they're telling us? I think they admit that they were unable to fulfill those targets. So,
and he points you to a roadmap.
Yes, so legitimately, my cynicism is appropriate in the sense that there isn't much to drive me in beginning to think that anything is going to change. That's my feeling. But we can interrogate the specifics. How did we arrive at that unprecedented fiscal deficit? How did we get there? There were things that were done practically that led us to that unprecedented fiscal deficit, which today we are trying to manage and are proud that we are reducing them piecemeal. We're celebrating, I don't know, I must choose my words carefully, but I don't have to spoil the day. I was going to say ineptitude, technical incompetence. That's what we are celebrating. I heard, on the regional level, the global level, in terms of averages, even where we are better off. That's celebration of mediocrity.
You mean when you are posting 7.4%, while others are posting 4.5%?
I say, precisely the point I'm making. It's celebration of mediocrity. You set us targets.
Just for clarity.
You set targets. You don't meet those targets. Then you turn around and tell us that, well, but even what we did is better than on those around the region, within the West Coast or the continent, or even somewhere in the world.
Even underscore, it's not true.
Well, factually.
I was going to ask the question, is it wrong to point you to facts? And you say that's
but
not
we
true?
are even being told it's not factual.
You want me to come in?
No, they deal with that briefly, because I thought those were facts that were being
Let
presented.
me read for you.
Kwaku doesn't see interjection from Dr. Abuto.
We're talking specifically about growth. We're talking specifically about growth. Let's 7.4% growth versus 4.9 for sub-Saharan Africa versus 5.3 for oil-producing countries,
Right.
versus 3.2 for global average. Are you doubting that
Growth is only one of the criteria.
No, but that's what I spoke about.
Hold on.
Specifically,
Okay, now
I spoke about the growth.
In the West Africa region, we have something we call the convergence criteria.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. Let me read for you the minister's
didn't meet
statement. Mr. Speaker, an analysis of the primary criteria indicates that at the end of June 2013, Nigeria was the only member state that satisfied all 4 primary criteria as shown in tables 1 and 2. Liberia, a post-conflict state, Sierra Leone, a post-conflict state, satisfied 3 of the criteria each, with Liberia missing out on the external reserves criteria, while Sierra Leone did not meet the inflation criteria. The Gambia and Guinea satisfied 2 criteria each. Ghana met only 1 criterion. This is how many countries? 6 in the West Africa. And we call ourselves the gateway to West Africa.
No, but in real terms,
You know why it's completely misleading.
Which country is it that is meeting the convergence criteria?
I'm saying this is in West Africa, and we are comparing. We are supposed to meet all of these. I'm saying we were the last. We should not be happy. We cannot celebrate that.
Let me tell you something.
It's appalling that post-conflict states are meeting the criteria, and we are supposed to be doing better, and we are last. 1 out of 4. On the secondary criteria, we only did 2 out of 6. Even in, I'm not saying the West Africa is very good, but even in mediocrity, we are last.
I didn't hear that.
And it's important to react to that. Because obviously he's completely misleading the public.
Did I read, something from here?
No, listen carefully.
Out of context.
Completely
Out of context.
Completely out of context.
Let me explain
When we speak about Ghana,
we are dealing with a matter of opinion.
No, hold on.
You think you hold a superior one. He believes that is his analysis
when we
is
speak
correct.
about Ghana being
This is not my statement. This is the
when we
minister's
speak about
statement.
Ghana being an attractive investment destination, the minister mentioned 2 critical issues. One, the growth rate, and that's very important consideration worldwide. The Ghana is growing at a rate that is way higher than even other oil-producing countries, than other sub-Saharan African countries, than the global average. The second one, in terms of being what you call an attractive portfolio investment destination. 3 countries in Africa: South Africa, Ghana, and Nigeria. Now, you don't talk about, and talking about what's the name? Talking about ECOWAS. Let me finish. Talking about the ECOWAS.
That was the minister's opinion. That was
hold on.
West African
Talking about
criteria.
Please, talking about convergence criteria. You should actually be the last to speak about it. In 2008, you met 0.
Yes.
Out of 4, 0. So don't even talk about it. MPP, don't even talk about it. 0 convergence criteria that you left behind. So don't even talk.
You are last among
when we are talking NDC, MPP, you left 0.
You are last. This is the minister saying. You are last.
I say you left 0. What do you think? You were last. You were less than last. When you left 0.
Abdul Malik, you have the floor.
Last you left 0.
Gentlemen, please allow Kuku to do this analysis.
People
who are living too.
I recall what then running mate John Mahama said. He says this is comparison with mediocrity.
And that's just what he's done. That's just what Dr. Akutose has
that's
done.
what Fifi
He says even in mediocrity we are last.
Yes, that is what he's saying. He's telling us of 0 by the MPP. And we are being told about 1.
And that's better.
But that's comparison.
No, I only say so because he actually shouldn't be the one to be talking.
Can I proceed?
Somebody who is performing better should be the one to talk.
Please continue. Gentlemen, let's hear Kuku.
The point is this. Within our own context, we set targets because we think we have put out the realistic targets, the principal ones. Come the end of the year, we don't fulfill them.
A good student set excellent targets. And if he says 90% target and get 80, it doesn't mean he has failed his exam.
We'll be unable to do any
it doesn't mean he has failed his exam.
We'll be unable to do any serious critical analysis. You see, what we ought to be doing is to ask ourselves, what disabled us from fulfilling those targets?
Exactly. That's proper analysis.
When you ask the question from that perspective, then you can be able to look at the pillars, the basics. What didn't we do right?
He told you about the unexpected situations.
Which unexpected situations?
Unexpected.
Which unexpected? So that huge physical
unpredictable situations.
Unpredictable.
That's what resulted in the huge physical deficit, the unprecedented deficit. Those were unexpected things.
I give you the breakdown. Or you want to hear the breakdown again?
No.
Yes.
Do
you want to hear the breakdown again?
Yes. No, we've read it. Sorry.
Do you want to hear the breakdown again? Because I give you the breakdown.
Gentlemen.
False breakdown.
No, gentlemen. Let's hear.
50% was not the wage bill.
Quick, proceed. You have your time and you deal with it because I saw you making a note of the 50% that you spoke about.
I refuse to hear those who talk about the single spine thing today within the context of this deficit, because in the campaign period they knew, if they knew that, they would not have projected.
So it's not a reality?
So it's not a reality?
So it ceases to be a reality?
You allow him to go on so that
I mean, what kind of analysis is this?
Gentlemen.
Well,
Mr. Baku was dead silent when you made your presentation.
To say that you use it for campaign,
it
ceases to be a reality?
No. I think it's most unfair.
It's not a good analysis.
No. You keep that your opinion.
That's yours. Allow him.
That's what I've done. I'm stating my
when you have your chance.
So Fifi, let's do it this way. You have your time and you do it. And I'm sure if he heckled you the way you are doing, you'll not be pleased.
I just made a quick
you're not happy.
remark.
I was
and the remark I made is
questions. You're not pleased about that. Yes.
The way you're behaving.
Not too long ago, Fifi Kwete, when the Statistical Service of this country had put out figures suggesting that the Ghanaian economy had quadrupled, he said it was not a fact, and that was kangaroo statistics, 419 scam statistics.
I thought you
that was an educated intervention from
Fifi,
that was
Fifi, completely lie on that one.
Fifi, can you make a note? Can you make
when you misquote me?
Can you
give me no option?
No.
When you misquote me, give me no option but to react.
I
never said that.
I'm sorry, but
I took issues.
It's becoming very difficult to moderate the show because of what you're doing. Please, can you hold on?
When you get a chance,
Hold on.
He's directly
referring to
make
a note.
And he said something I haven't said.
Make a note.
I took
Make a
serious
note.
issue.
You will have the
with
opportunity
nominal competition
and
on
you will
GDP.
react. Thank you.
No problem. I'll come back to that.
Check Daily Graphic, Wednesday, 22nd October, 2008. Let me read. The National Democratic Congress has debunked claims by the NPP that it had quadrupled the economy from 4 billion to 16 billion. It contended that that assertion could mean that the country's economy had been growing at an average rate of nearly 20% per annum. The propaganda secretary of the party, Mr. Fifi Kwete, who said this at a press conference in Accra on Monday, added that an economy of $4 billion in 2000, growing at the so-called average rate of 6% per annum, can in 8 years be at most only 6.4 billion. Mr. Kwete described the statistical reasoning used in arriving at such growth of the economy as 419 scam, which must be ignored. This is the full statement itself. This is a graphic report. The full statement, it says, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so now you're being distracted from your own points of analysis.
He challenged me to something. I'm uneducated. My analysis is uneducated.
I'm ready to explain, so go ahead.
One of the biggest lies the NPP has been throwing about is the talk of having grown the economy from $4 billion to $16 billion. The NPP is so anxious to mislead Ghanaians that they have completely lost sight of the fact that there is no way an economy purportedly growing at an average of about 6% can quadruple in 8 years. When the NPP says they have quadrupled the economy from 4 to 16 billion in 8 years, what they are claiming is that the economy of Ghana has been growing at an average rate of nearly 20% every year. An economy of $4 billion in 2000, growing at the so-called average rate of 6% per annum, can in 8 years be at most only 6.4 billion. We repeat, 6.4 billion. So why is the NPP throwing about the 419 scam statistics and claiming that to have grown the economy from 4 billion to 6 billion, that's 16 billion? Aren't our people's economic suffering enough? Why should the NPP also add insult to the pain by deceiving them as well as with all these kangaroo statistics? The answer is simple. The NPP has a mindset that believes that truth does not matter as long as one can use lies and distortions to deceive the people to get hold of political power. Come 2009 to 10, when officially the same statistical service told us that they had rebased the economy, beginning from the point of 2006, the government of Fifi Kwete, in all their budgets and things, admitted this growth that he called kangaroo statistics. That was an educated intervention.
Dr. Baumia went on
Oh,
the same
well,
line.
I am not yet talking about Dr. Baumia. I made a point.
Dr. Baumia.
Kweku, finish your points about the cynicism of the budget.
Because I've been disrupted.
That's not correct.
I've been disrupted all along.
That's not correct. That's incorrect. And in fact, if we are talking time, I deliberately gave you 5 minutes addition than what Dr.
That's not true.
I did.
That's
I'm telling you.
That is not true.
This show
You
will
kept-
be played
you also
back.
kept disrupting
This
me.
show I did not.
When I was
Asking
speaking,
questions
you
is
kept-
no
you kept
disruption.
disrupting me with questions.
Asking questions is no
I never
disruption.
spoke to the
This
extent
show
of- But
will
don't
be
worry,
played
I'm
back.
taking note. I'm
This show
taking
will be
note.
played back. Will
Let's-
play back at 9:30 p.m.
Samson,
Please monitor.
I'm taking
You would
notes, and I
find
will
the
make my
time
reaction.
and check the time. Kweku, can you finish on 3 minutes so that we go have a first break?
As I play back, Dr. Baumia.
No, I think if you go on that tangent, we'll be abandoning this,
I was
budget
forced.
debate.
I
You're
was
doing such a great disservice to the discerning people who are listening to
So
the
you
show.
realize I kept all these documents underneath.
Okay, Kweku
And
finished
so
the
these
tangent.
issues came up.
See,
Look,
Do you get it?
Kweku had his time. I'm sure
So
he
Omani
could have
cannot-
dealt with his time in 5
why
minutes.
prevent Omani from having?
But for the interventions that you made,
Samson, why will
Very
you
frequent
prevent
interventions.
Omani from
Go
having
on.
his tangent?
Go on.
Let's not iterate.
No,
Kweku, go on.
the moderator must be fair.
Kweku, go on.
Why will you allow Kweku to have a tangent
Kweku,
and
go on.
prevent Omani from having it?
Fifi, sincerely,
No, I'm just asking a question.
I'll leave those who are watching and listening to make the judgment about my fairness in the moderation.
Exactly.
I've been extremely fair to you.
If not.
Yeah.
Yeah. One high point of the budget, in my candid opinion, not a bad idea. The Ghana National Infrastructure Fund. The difficulty I have with it is the attempt now to tell us that the 2.5% VAT increment is the source of funding.
It's one of the sources.
Yes, one of the sources. I think that was an afterthought.
No. Oh, can you allow him to finish? Please, make him
No, since when did you become his spokesperson?
No.
Allow him to speak for
Because
himself.
I know.
Allow him to speak for himself.
I know.
I don't know what to
speak
do.
for
We are disrupting the program. It's not fair.
Yes.
Allow him to speak for himself.
I suppose in the circumstance, it would be fair to give Kweku extra time. Kweku, go on.
I
Allow
said,
people to speak
because you see, I'm wondering, I've checked the memorandum that was sent, attached to the bill, the VAT bill. It was obvious that they did not even intend to increase the VAT rate in that memorandum. And they have been there since July to recent times. And this National Infrastructure Fund, I think it's a very serious project. So definitely might have gone through a lot of discussions within the executive. It's not an idea that somebody just slept overnight and brought it. Obviously not. Very serious project, and I think it's positive. Let me be honest with you. But I am saying that I found it quite interesting and intriguing that we are now being told that one of the sources of funding will be the 2.5 thing. I think it would have been better if it had been properly structured. So I'm saying there's an afterthought. That doesn't mean I am throwing away the baby with the bathwater. It's an opinion I'm expressing. Now there's another aspect, the debt profile. I found it very interesting. We've moved beyond the 50% to 53 point something. And I thought that was significant. Because in recent times, we've been making a lot of noise about the rate of borrowing and the debt profile. And we were always told that, because of the way the economy had expanded, debt sustainability analysis indicate that we are nowhere near the danger zone, which is supposed to be around 60%. Well, we are close to 60% now, 53 point something. And the impression I get is that the system now, that the government now believes that, look, let's find a way of limiting pursuit of loans. It was implied in the statement, and that I think is also an encouraging thing. At least the awareness by the executive that this path of just unbridled borrowing ought to stop or ought to be limited, I think is also a positive aspect. I'm sure we'll come to the other details, but to be honest with you, if what I did, which was provoked, has distorted the essence of this program, I render my apologies.
No, I will respond. So
all right. Thank you very much, Abdul Malik. This is the point where we take a quick break, and I will return to continue briefly with the discussion on the budget. I'm sure that by 11 o'clock we would finish that discussion and move on to the next two equally important matters to discuss. Now, we'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is your most authoritative news analysis show, Newsfile, and my guests, Fifi Kwete, Dr. Anthony Akotose, Dr. Mane Buama, and Abdul Malik Kweku Jr. Now, keep your conversations going with MTN in Tesoro. Now, each time you top up with any MTN recharge voucher, you get 3 minutes to enjoy longer conversations. No subscriptions required. No long things. Just top up today and enjoy your 3 minutes on the go with MTN and Tesoro. Your bonus minutes can be used for MTN to MTN calls only. So go on, keep the conversations going. Welcome to the new world. MTN, everywhere you go. Samuel Brian Boabing in Awoshe Rise, the 2014 budget is an inspiring and a mere rehash of unfulfilled promises made in 2013. There is no hope in this budget, but rather increase the suffering of the masses. Well, I wish, when we are doing these comments, let's keep to certain aspects, raise them and critique them than the wholesale. Bonty Benjamin writes, the budget failed to address the issues of unemployment, wanton corruption in the misplaced priorities, which have become a threat to our national development. President Mahama, sit up. Lawrence Nuku says, please, can Fifi Kwete tell... Okay, you know what? I've seen too many of your messages about Fifi Kwete. The show is about the budget and the other issues. So I'm not taking all of those text messages. This one from Atta Eduse of Fwasi Kokobin says, every year budget is read and proposals and promises are made, but we are in this deplorable state. Okay. Can you tell us why we are using the oil money for? What we are using the oil money for? Henry Kapma Tongo, is the government going to build sports senior high schools in all 10 regions? You mean what? Sports stadia or what? In all 10 regions in the country, according to paragraph 706 of the budget. Okay. If the government is not out to deceive, right, the Bolga Sports Stadium, that Professor Mills cuts a sought for reconstruction, which is still as it was at the time of the salt cutting, should be worked on before the sports senior high school for that of the Upper East region. First things first. Okay. Okay, I'll skip all the Fifi matters. Now, let's come back, and this time I'll start with you, Fifi. I'd like you to take a look at the questions of tax, areas taxes have been removed, and the applause or deserving commendation that appears to be that should come to government naturally for those moves. You don't seem to see, a groundswell of applause in those directions, including, of course, the 10% executive salary cut. Why do you think it is so?
Yeah, thank you very much. And Samson, before I come to that, let me just quickly make a few reactions to some concerns raised by my good brother, Kweku Bako. Kweku, for your information, I've never, at any point, ever doubted figures that have been churned out by the Statistical Service. Unlike, for example, Dr. Bawumia, who in one breath, praises the same Statistical Service when it tells that the figures look good for the NPP, and then questions the credibility of the Statistical Service when it is that the figures don't look good for NPP's politics. I've never at any point questioned the Statistical Service. What you raised was typically NDC raising issues of NPP's what you call spin doctoring, where NPP sought very hard to create the impression that it had literally brought a transformation of the economy of Ghana. And for the first time in the history of our country, instead of NPP limiting its debate on real growth of the economy, departed from the normal time-honored tradition of talking about real growth of the economy and started talking about nominal growth of the economy. Nobody in the world. Excuse me. Kweku, let me just explain. Nobody in the history of hardly in the world talks about nominal growth of any economy. We talk about the economy growing on real basis. Okay. Because I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Okay. Listen, between 1992, in fact, let's say 1993 and the year 2000, 8 years of the NDC before the NPP, if we want to boast about nominal growth, the economy of Ghana saw a phenomenal growth of nearly 1,200%, specifically 1,189%. You never heard the NDC.
Are you addressing the issues I raised?
I'm explaining the issue.
Well, you said yourself.
I'm telling you, our challenge had to do with NPP's what you call spin doctrine, throwing about nominal growth. That's what we were taking issues with. We were saying focus on real growth. And the real growth, averagely, between the time NPP was in power, was about 5 to about 6%. Well, you did not want to come and be throwing about 400% growth. When it is NDC, prior to you, had done 1,189% growth in 8 years. So that really was the issue we were raising. We were taking issues with MPPs, clearly deceiving the people of Ghana, throwing about nominal figures in order to deceive the people, as opposed to talking about the real growth of the economy. That was the issue we had. Now, talking about concerns, Samson, you raised about initiatives that we have brought vis-a-vis taxation. What we need to appreciate is this. A country, and Dr. Akoto and Kweku Bako as well, Dr. Akoto and Kweku Bako as well, raise issues to do with the debt levels. Now, this debt level, if you notice, are increasingly coming from the domestic debt rather than the external debt. Now, the reason why the domestic debt continues to be this high is because, clearly, pressures are being brought onto the budget because of the high expenditure and the need for us to be able to meet those high expenditures, and revenues are not matching, so naturally the deficits continue to be high. Now, if we want to forestall a situation where our domestic debt will continue to go high. It means, therefore, we need to address issues relating to what you call how to match revenues with expenditures. That shows that we need to do something drastic about revenues. Now, oftentimes people say you have leakages, you have corruption, and therefore resolve them. Yeah, they are good. I think every government, okay, no matter where in the world it finds itself, must make effort at reducing leakages. Now, leakages, however, are not things that you can simply use a magic whip and then immediately remove. No. If it were, every single government in the history of Ghana would have been able to eliminate them. MPP came into office 8 years. In fact, I remember when they were coming into office, they made it look as if, listen, when they come, there was even no need to at all to increase taxes at all, because there was so much wastage in the system. They were just coming to eliminate that wastage, and then they'll be able to make revenues meet expenditure. In 8 years, they realized that no, it's not as easy as that. Talk is cheap. They saw the need for increasing tax measures. Not only did they, as it were, increase the VAT, of course, they brought it under disguise national health insurance, which was really VAT in disguise. They also lowered the threshold of the same VAT that they had opposed earlier. But that's not to criticize them. I'm just saying so that, listen, the reality is always very different from what it is that you hope. Listen, we need to be able to reduce deficits. And to do so, we need to have the boldness to take tax measures that will enable us match revenues with expenditure. Because as long as deficits continue to be what they are, we are forced to continue borrowing, especially on the domestic market. And that same borrowing is the one that is exacerbating our issues of debt stock, and that is creating concerns for everybody. Now, if we want to reduce that debt stock, therefore, we need to have the measures that we have put in place. Now, we have brought an additional 2.5% VAT, and that's important. It's important because it gives us additional, what you call, resource envelope to be able to meet especially the infrastructure needs of our country. Remember, one of the biggest problems that we've had, especially in 2013, has been the fact that as a result of virtually all the money is going into payment of public sector wage, and some of it going into meeting what you call interest payment. Very, very little money was available, to be able to honor the very vital infrastructure needs of our country. Social infrastructure, economic infrastructure. And as long as you are not able to attend to especially your economic infrastructure, your growth levels will continue to suffer. And now if the growth levels are suffering, naturally you are not going to be able to raise levels of income. That clearly will bring about what you want. So having what you call a tax measure such as VAT, that unleashes in the regions of about almost 800 million cities, that enables us to cater for infrastructure, becomes very important.
I intended for each of you to do 5 minutes for us to round
up. But I thought you mentioned about the 10%.
It's all right. If you can take that in some 30 seconds.
No problem.
Yes.
The 10% voluntary pay cut is actually an initiative, being undertaken by the president and the executive and all appointees as a way of signaling to the country that we simply cannot continue to, as it were, under what you call to create the impression as if the public sector wage issue is not an important issue. We want the country to know that this is a big issue. We want that signal to go, not just from the executive, but also to go to other arms of government, to the judiciary, to go to the legislature. My good friend who is an MP like
people
myself,
say when you raise your salaries by so much and then you decide to cut 10% of it, you've really done nothing. And when you're having ministers of appointees who obviously don't seem to have work to do, that's where you should tackle. Clear off those that you don't need. You don't need to be cutting down on your salaries, really.
The level of cynicism will always be there. All over the world, you have these same levels of cynicism. Especially in a country that is as polarized as ours, a lot of that cynicism is also very much informed by, should I call it, the political, people who obviously have a political axe to grind. So we can take that on board. But the truth of the matter is this signal is important for the country. It's important for organized labor out there to know that government is signaling the need for sacrifice, the need for moderation in terms of what it is. Because don't forget, at the end of the day, if we don't tackle this public sector wage and the effect it's having on the larger economy, we are retarding our growth. Therefore, the extent of cynicism, has to reduce, because at the end of the day, it's affecting every single one.
And kindly help me here in a minute. Do you know if the infrastructure fund will exist side by side the road fund?
Yes.
Of course.
That's what is going to happen.
The
course,
road
okay.
fund is very limited.
But road
Right.
fund, I don't even know why.
Maintenance
I don't even know
and
why you
all
keep mentioning road fund in light of infrastructure fund. It's
Why?
It's negligible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
road fund
Is it?
negligible. Yeah.
Okay.
The road fund is
And someone would like to know from you, really, Fifi, that if you can tell if the ratio of revenue to wage bill has changed much since 2009. What were the so-called needed public expenditures that led to the huge 2012 deficit? We are told infrastructure funding deficit is 1.5 billion a year.
Did you understand that question? Because I don't.
I do.
Explain.
He's
it to me.
saying, can we find out from Fifi if ratio of revenue to wage bill has changed much from 2009?
Has it changed much? That's the first part, which was okay. The last part is what I'm finding difficult to understand.
Okay, so you just addressed the portion
The
that you
first part
understand.
is simple, okay? For most part of 2013, total wage, if you look at it, wage and wages and salaries generally, as a percentage of non-oil tax revenue, was over 70%. In fact, specifically, if you look at it even within this budget, I can give you the exact figure. We're looking at the moment wage arrears. If you add it to the total wages and salary that are being paid, we are looking at 75.8% of non-oil tax revenue, and also 71.3% of tax revenue if you take out exemptions. That's massive. That's massive. That actually was not what it is we had, before the single spine. And as I mentioned to you earlier, prior to single spine, we are looking at an annual wage of about 2.5 billion. And now we are approaching 9.5, heading towards 10 billion. That's massive.
Okay.
That's massive.
Now, Dr. Akutose, tell me.
You kept in mind how much time you gave.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure he would have observed it. This time, I'm sure he would have observed it himself.
He said I should summarize. And after that, he started asking questions. So I will blush.
Unfortunately, you find questions as in the disruption. So I allow you to finish before I ask my questions. Now, the aspect I was asking him about. Why is it that in the Ghanaian public, it appears people are not acknowledging or giving the government the due praise for some of these, tax reliefs and 10% executive salary cuts?
I've been restraining myself from doing propaganda, and I'll continue to do that because I think we need to educate our public.
Okay, go on.
I thought for a while we're moving into this propaganda thing. We want to educate. First of all, let me correct some things that Fifi said, which is not correct. Earlier, you remember he said that the deficit of 2012, 50% was from wages, single spine. That's not correct.
I said the overrun.
Overrun. But hold on.
I used the word overrun.
Yeah, overrun.
To be specific.
Overrun is 1.9.
Overrun.
The whole
he
deficit.
says that even excludes compensations and
No, but that's why I'm trying to correct him.
allowances.
No. The 8.7 billion, the overrun was 1.9 billion. Make it 2. 2 out of 8.7 is not 50%. So let me correct that.
Do you know how much?
Oh,
was it?
please. Fifi, I listened to you.
1.9.
Out of 8.7 cannot be 50%.
1.9.
Yes,
Not out of 8.7. I'm talking the overrun.
Yes, Fifi, listen carefully. Please don't interrupt.
Okay.
Stop it.
Right.
The deficit was 8.7 billion. The overrun is 1.9. 1.9 out of 8.7 is not 50%.
I'm not talking about 1.9 being overrun for wages. I said the wages overrun is 1.9, 1.1.
You said it's 50% of the deficit.
Doc?
Right.
Fifi,
Okay,
That's
so
why I
move
said
on.
we can go through
So
the
move on.
whole
This is the
thing
point.
again.
This is the point. This is the point. He won't take your point.
No,
So
no,
move on.
he should not even.
Yeah.
I have not. We are
You see?
listening.
No,
he should
people
not
are
come in.
listening to you.
That's the point.
And they are making sense of what is going on.
Right.
So you just go on.
Secondly, I've observed that the wage tax ratio that the guy was referring to since 2006 is never exceeded 53%. The wage, if you take all wages divided by how much tax we have from 2006 to 2003. In fact, in 2004, the government is projecting 53.2.
2014, you mean?
2014 is projecting 53.2. So this 70%, we have to be very careful when we put it out there. Let me tell you why people are cynical about the 10% so-called voluntary cut.
That's not factual. People are not cynical.
Please.
A
This
lot of people are
interjection
not.
must stop.
A lot of people are not.
Please. when you have your chance, you talk about it, please. This is not. Look, first of all, it is not the first time it's been done. Those ministers in Kufuor regime between 2001 and 2004 who chose to take their salaries from the castle did not get a pay increase. But it was an administrative measure. Kufuor did not come and say, I've cut their salary. He gave MPs an increase in salary, but they did not. There was mafos. So most of them ended up with lower end of service benefits. So you do it administratively. But if the president really wants to make savings with the executive, I can advise him where to go. Not a 10% cut in salary.
What would be your advice?
First, the president should abolish the purchase of a four-wheeler and saloon car for all ministers. He should abolish it. Just like MPs we are doing, let them take loans to buy their car. Let him not fuel it for them. Let him not maintain it for them. That is where you get savings to begin with.
Is that what you're doing?
Please, Fifi, can you let me go on?
That's a question.
No, I'm saying you want to make savings.
Is that what you're doing?
Your phone bill is free. Your utility is free. That's where he wants to make savings. He should go there. Well, 10% of 8,000, how much? 800 cities? Even if we add 100 ministers, what, 80,000? That's less than $1 million a year. You're talking about savings. One four-wheeler is what?
You don't see sense in what he talks about, the symbolic significance in that.
But we want to deal with reality. First of all, you don't need, if you want to go that part, you don't need to. MPs are taking loans to buy their cars and maintaining them from their salary. Why can't the ministers do the same? Why can't they do the same? I admit that the government has a stock. Go ahead. Let them maintain it themselves. No fuel, no free fuel, no free utilities. Go further.
No, but they have been directed to pay for their utilities.
It's part of it. Yeah. Part of it. But that's where the savings is. Not a 10% cut in salary. But what does that do? 10% is nothing. So it doesn't get far. I'm talking 1 million cedis a year. You are talking about a deficit of 8.9 billion. And here we are joking 1 million.
Is it a gesture worthy of praise?
No. Because it does not address the problem. No, I'm serious. I think it's propaganda. Because the president does not pay anything. He doesn't get taxed. So, look, most presidents don't even see their salaries. I'm telling you. Because everything is free. Most ministers get, look, if you want to make progress, let's be serious. Let us pay people well. I am against the cut. In fact, I think they are Ghanaians. If inflation is at 13%, at least give them an average increase. But then let them pay for their car and their utilities. That is proper than saying 10%. It doesn't make sense. Let me go to something that's really worrisome. And
quickly.
It's for all of us going forward. There's something that is going to affect all Ghanaians, and we need to deal with it.
Which is
that if you combine together the tariff increases and the VAT increase, prices will go up. Why? We are only dealing with a 59% adjustment in 2013. The government has agreed, so we are told, to do all the adjustment in the next 9 months. Inflation is already at 13%. So automatically, inflation will head up in 2014. we must brace ourselves for it. There's no doubt about that. That is what is challenging for Ghanaians, and we must face with. So when the government, one thing that I'm sad about that did not happen with this budget is that we were told that government was going to agree with Labour on the 10% salary increase. This is going to make, if they did not conclude, it's going to make negotiations difficult because inflation is already at 13%. And when government was discussing with Labour about the 25% decline in reduction in tariffs, it did not know that VAT was going to come. VAT, the way it works, automatically brings price. Let me give you an example. One, if you are paying a cedi for something that's VATable, currently you'll be paying 15 pesos because VAT is 12. Okay. Now, with the increase, you'll be paying 17.5. So
and that starts next year.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, the charges for next year.
Right.
So, but what happens with VAT is that most people, rightly or wrongly, believe that their costs have increased if they are businesses. So they tag the 2.5 on.
Wrongly.
So you end up
educate them.
You end up with a cascading effect, and then you end up paying 120 instead of 117.5. So whether you and I like it or not, that's challenge we are going to face.
That's why we need to educate them.
When we move to the adjustment of the complete increase that the utilities were looking. It's what, 120 something. That will come with a price increase. The government already says its target is single digit. It's not going to meet it. I wonder the coordination between Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana. It's not going to work. So we will be, but 9 plus 2 is 11. You're already at 13%. You're already at 30%. So I worry, and all Ghanaians must brace ourselves.
We've been at 21%
and
brought it down. So
we've been at 140 before.
Yeah, we brought it down. So.
But if you say you are looking at single digit, it's not going to happen.
I see.
It's not going to happen.
I see.
So Ghanaians must brace ourselves for challenges in terms of inflation rates.
Concrete.
That is
I see. Very.
Finally, the extra taxes that government is imposing, government must revisit. The first one dealing with the threshold. See, Social Democratic government says that it wants to protect the inflation, erosion effect of inflation on low-income people. So this year, for the first time, it is not going to increase the threshold. Automatically, those in that category will experience a reduction in their real income. This is only a proposal, so we are going to look at it. Withholding tax on rent, going up to what, 15% from 8%. That's a tax increase. Windfall profit tax. Now, it was brought in the budget last year. When gold prices are going down, the mining industry is laying off people now. There's no windfall. You are going to bring a 10% windfall tax. What do you expect the mine, as we speak?
So it's not applicable for now.
They are left. No.
That's what it is.
No.
It's not applicable.
There's no windfall. There's
no tax.
But you know what he's saying is the fact. It's not applicable now.
This is proposed for next year.
But if it's only when there's a windfall.
Please, let me finish. You're proposing it psychologically. Read the papers. They're already reacting.
I see.
They're already reacting. Finally. Road levy. Government says
ad valorem.
This will result in slight increase in the ex-pump price. We are going to do automatic adjustment. We are going to sneak in a road levy. That will, pump price will go up.
We are in difficult times.
Look, I'm saying, but let Ghanaians know that prices are going to go up. We'll have a higher inflation. So people should brace themselves up. That's why I mean that if you think that 2013 is challenging, wait till we get into
I just wanted to take your view on this. The IEA is advocating a multi-party parliamentary budget office to check government spending.
I agree with them.
It's good?
I agree with them.
What exactly, what animal is that?
What happened in 2012 is completely unacceptable. Look, when we went through the estimates, almost every ministry overspent their budget against the Appropriations Act. If the act is a law, we should not allow any government to exceed it.
Oh, I see.
And when they do, they are supposed to suffer sanctions.
Yes.
Were the sanctions applied?
No. There are no implied sanctions. But if Parliament were doing well, it would say we'll reduce the budget. But Parliament is not acting the way it was back.
You are part of Parliament. You say Parliament is
we are a minority. I brought this issue up. They didn't even know.
But when you're a majority in 2000, they didn't overspend. I
see.
No, we didn't know. We didn't exceed the Appropriations Act.
All right, interesting.
Exceeding the Appropriations Act is not the same as having the
We have huge areas that we have to take care of.
I agree with them.
Okay.
Parliament ought to get more serious.
I thought.
Okay. Doc, give us 5 minutes.
Oh.
Your very final,
including the
into the
historical
discussion. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
This is extremely.
You did about 6 minutes.
Because you
I
asked
agree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
And I did 3 minutes.
Let me be quick.
No, Fifi did
Let me be quick.
12 minutes or more.
Let me be
You're always
Let me be
inflating
quick.
my figures.
I'm not inflating. I was checking. Look, I write the time here and I watch it.
Okay.
Double mine.
You see, I thought Dr. Kutose was going to stick to his promise of not doing propaganda.
Which propaganda did I do?
But
Everything you did is propaganda.
he indicated left and turned
No,
right.
which propaganda? Tell me.
You did propaganda throughout.
If it's propaganda, I'll withdraw. What's the
Throughout
propaganda?
No, you explain.
He's setting the stage to do
He
his own.
indicated left and turned right.
If you can
Like he
explain-
always does.
Look,
Like he always does.
we are in this country, and this is the only country that we can all live in without visa. We witnessed how, in the year 2012, President Mahama even was asking the legislature to reduce the salary of the executive and how that was treated. We have moved past that stage. But only about 2 weeks or so ago, the minority leader, Honorable Seche Mensah Bonsu, speaking at one of the functions of the MPP, advocated an elevation of...
Can I correct you?
An augmentation.
No. Let me correct you. I was there.
Okay, yeah.
I was there.
Oh, but won't you allow... The man has only started talking. You are correct.
I was at the function.
Yes.
I'll
still take my 5 minutes.
Was telling us about the differences among legislative salaries. He did not advocate for increase.
With what in view?
Okay.
Please.
Good.
Okay.
There must be something in view.
Thanks for that.
But there must be something in view.
Thanks for that. Let's allow him to go.
But I'm sure he was not just doing an academic exercise.
No,
it was
he
for an
had
effect.
something in mind.
And so, if we have a situation where a president, his vice president, ministers, appointees are not advocating increases, but are saying that, look, we are in difficult times, we are ready and willing to go down voluntarily by 10%. And let me explain why we had to insert the voluntary, because we knew that some mischief makers could even have activated impeachment proceedings against the president just because he is going on the line of cutting down his own salary. Okay? Doc, you have made fantastic diagnoses here, but wrong prescriptions. You diagnose malaria and treat it with antihypertensives. I thought you were the very person who was analyzing the deficit and all that, and then you turn around and begin to attack some of these tax measures that can ensure that we can have...
I did not attack them. I said the effect
you
ought
are
to be
more,
known.
you are disrupting him more than you were complaining about.
He's taking
He doesn't like it when you are talking.
So now
he comes in
so
all
now
the
you
time, even when
so now you have a problem with the disruption.
He's reading. I can speak for myself. I said, let's look at the effect. Prices will go up.
Okay.
That's what I said.
So it means that Dr. Couture said endorses the tax measures, but he's saying that we should look at the effects.
Taking
We are not taking a position here.
At this point,
we are debating it here.
I'll request of you to also keep your calm and listen.
This is the forum that has more than 275 Ghanaians.
Absolutely.
And I want Ghanaians to appreciate where the MPP stands. Because it is not enough to know the problems. As for the problems, give any university student an essay, he will run the problems. Do you understand? But when we are in politics, in opposition, and you are seeking the mandate of the people to govern, you must demonstrate that you are ready to govern. Clearly, the MPP is not demonstrating to me that beyond rehashing the problems, they have solutions. If they do, they should be telling us that scrap the 2.5% VAT, do not go for converting the road fund levy from specific to ad valorem, but you will still find a way of dealing with the deficit, and you will still find a way of providing roads, electricity, water, schools, without increasing the debt to GDP ratio. That is what I think is wrong with the discussion. I will say that, look, as a social democratic government and party, we have lived up to our responsibility. Look, if you look at this budget, and these are the highlights, as much as 5 million Ghana cedis is going to the Osu, Kumasi, and Tamale, and 2 other subvented orphanages, which includes Mampong and Jirapa. LEAP, we are adding as many as 50,000 to make it to 150,000, and we are going to spend 38 million Ghana cedis on them.
And why is this special? Is it extraordinary? Is it novel?
You are moving from 100,000 to 150,000 just in 1 year.
Right.
Okay? I have heard people say, unfortunately, that this budget doesn't say anything about employment. It doesn't address the issue of unemployment. It is silent on dealing with unemployment. And unfortunately, I think that the TUC even has made this comment. If we talk about infrastructure fund, and we are going to use the money to develop infrastructure, developing infrastructure can happen without generating employment. We are talking about the SME fund. SME, if entrepreneurs are going for money from the SME fund to expand their businesses or other new businesses coming up that will not be generating employment. In this budget, we are talking about expansion of the Dawa, Ave, Afedeimba, Tono Phase 2, Akumadan irrigation project that is not going to increase employment. We are talking about completing the Pong thermal power plant, 110 megawatts T2, that is not going to generate employment. So you see, it is enough to identify the problems, but it is better if you prescribe the appropriate solutions. I think that this budget was carefully thought through. It identified the debt to GDP ratio challenge that is confronting the country. It has gone up, yes, because we were not able to meet the GDP target that we had set for ourselves. But hey, within 1 year, your GDP can shoot up based on the strategic interventions that you put in place. 2011 was one such example. And so, it is important for us to discuss even debt to GDP ratio, our capacity to borrow even some more based on the needs of our people within the larger context of what it is that we can do to stimulate growth so that we can be able to expand the denominator, that is the GDP, so that even when we borrow some more and use the money efficiently and judiciously through the interventions that we are putting in place through the GIFMES program, we will be able to maximize these facilities that we take.
Okay.
Last but not the least, I think that the suggestion that we should have a bipartisan office in Parliament to deal with these deficits and all that, yes, it may be an indictment on the work of a committee in Parliament, but I don't think that even within the constraints that we have, the select committee on finance doesn't have the power to rein in some of these things. The select committee on communication can always put forward any question and ministers will be asked to come and answer. Do we need to be creating more structures?
It's interesting you bring in
onto the bureaucracy.
Yeah,
it's a different
you bring in the aspect of judicious use and avoiding wastage and everything. I just want to read something to you by Imani's Kofi Bento. He says, I can say, while he praises the budget in aspect and especially what the president has decided to cut salaries, he says that I can say on authority that the key challenges facing this nation are water, health, education, energy, transport, road, rail, air, water, telecoms, and ICT infrastructure. What we all call, what he calls the WHIT, and agricultural modernization. The new challenges are all man-made, coming from bad policies and corruption. The biggest new challenge is fiscal, i.e. relating to government money. There is huge waste and corruption, and then a huge wage bill. In short, it is single spine and the big scams like Jida, Suba, Woyome, etc. So, in all, it's the WHIT, corruption and public wage bill. I believe the president and his team know this, and they ought to address that.
My brother, so you look at this document, which is the project I spoke about. What's the name of the project?
E-Transform Ghana Project.
So we are not just speaking in vacuum, that this budget is transformational. Even the IT, the electronic aspect of it is also being looked at. This is not my document, this is not government document, this is the World Bank document. It is good that he speaks about the fact that we will need IT and all these things to deal with these matters. But look,
he didn't talk about IT.
If you, he spoke about it. He spoke about it. he spoke about it. But if you listen to the finance minister carefully, we even have a situation where in this budget, he's indicating that the anti-corruption institutions, when they have been able to help the state recover some funds, they will be entitled to some percentage.
That's an incentive.
This is an incentive.
Right.
Here again in this budget, people are being given the opportunity to be assisted in terms of assessing their tax returns and all that. And then again, informants are also being assured in this budget that if you were able to assist government in the recovery of hidden taxes and all that, you will also be rewarded richly. And
that's actually provided for in law, in the Whistleblowers Act.
So my brother, but we saw the need to give expression to this
right in the budget. Right.
And so we are not saying that corruption started from Adam. We are not saying that.
Okay.
We are saying that we must deal with it, and we are dealing with it.
Okay. All right, Abdul Malik.
I'm sure the last one can be.
Briefly, and then we move on. Briefly, and then we move on.
Yes. We should be elevating.
That's just besides the point.
Okay.
Indeed, corruption.
And I hope you acknowledge for how long you spoke. Go on, Kuku.
Is it not a fact that corruption is as old as man? And for that matter, Adam.
The Garden of
I'll deal with the 10% cut. Of course, there was an initial hue and cry about constitutionality or otherwise. I think that has
died down.
Been relegated to the background after reading the text carefully and getting the trust of what was being suggested. I think that was red herring. But also, I was intrigued that it was done within the context of budget presentation. I found that quite intriguing. And I agree with Dr. Akutu that it could have been done administratively as part of the presidential directives and directions. So right now, it's within the context of the budget. Parliament is going to debate it and approve it and all the rest.
Now, there are those who are making a comparison. They say, ask yourself about Joyce Banda of Malawi. She is cutting as much as 30%.
Yes, but it's still within the context of symbolism. It has some value. Listening to Fifi carefully, I get the impression that perhaps they are anticipating or expecting a certain domino effect relative to other sectors. It's not compulsory, but they anticipate. I can get that drift. Yes, I'm not too sure if everybody will come on board in that sense.
But even the executive, some won't go.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Chief executives
we may have to. It's not new. There were those who also came out and said historic or precedent. That's not true. See, this is Daily Graphic, August 26, 1970. The same day, the day before the budget had been read. In the evening, Dr. Busia did a broadcast to the nation. They asked the slash, minister's salary slashed. The Prime Minister, Dr. K. Busia, in a broadcast to the nation last night, announced that he and his ministers were cutting their salaries. The government has decided to set the example. This is quote. The government has decided to set the example of making sacrifices by agreeing to cut the salaries of the Prime Minister, ministers, ministerial secretaries, and regional chief executives, the Prime Minister said. The Prime Minister said his own salary was being cut immediately by 6 Ghana new cities to 12 new cities, meaning that it was 33% cut. The salary of Minister of State was being cut by 2 cities to 9 cities. And the salary of a ministerial secretary or a regional chief executive will go down by 1,000 cities to 8,000 per annum. The Prime Minister added that the government intends to use the savings made by these cuts this financial year for rural development projects, which would have been included in the budget if the funds had been available. This is 1960.
It took it before he slashed.
When did Busia take a salary advance?
You are distorting my...
We're just asking a question for clarification.
I would subsequently come to that.
Historian, so.
Nkrumah did something similar. this is the Hansard, July 4th, 1961, when he launched the National Development Bond. It was a saving exercise and getting all farmers and people on board. And he thought that he should put himself in it. So on the sessional address, he said, I am anxious to contribute to this most important national savings effort myself. I have therefore directed the Accountant General that he should apply 15% of my emoluments as president to the purchase of the national development bonds. The final one, when it came to the tax, he says, Mr. Speaker, and members of the National Assembly, under the Constitution as President of the Republic, I am not liable to taxation, but I am not prepared to be excluded from sharing the common burden when everyone else is called upon to make sacrifices. I have therefore instructed the Accountant General that my basic allowance amounting to £2,500 a year should henceforth not be paid. This, in fact, comes to the same as if I had been called upon to pay income tax, both on my salary and on my basic allowance as president. I can, however, in this manner, tax myself by my own order.
Fantastic.
So we
Captain Command did not take salary advance. Babuzia took.
This is a distortion of my trend of thought.
We're talking about your champion, your hero.
Oh, yes.
Not taking
There's nobody greater than Osajifo
Sure.
in terms of leadership. But that's not what we are discussing now. We are looking at this as symbolic things. So I am not one of those who think it's an entirely negative thing. I think it points to the fact that we are challenged. But it also means that there are certain areas that perhaps we should look at and see if we can cut down the waste, the inefficiencies, the corruption. It's a pointer. Yes. We can. So you see, the idea is not to throw the baby away with the bathwater. I don't criticize it. I think it's a positive gesture, but we should look at how it is done. Now, see, the monies that are to be deducted by the by the Accountant General, they are meant for some purpose. We need to be able to monitor if indeed those deductions are being done, where they are being placed, and the utilization. Otherwise, really, there's no big deal. So I believe all those things will be subjected to the auditing principles and laws of this country. So in my candid opinion, it's a symbolic thing. It doesn't solve the problem, but I think it's a pointer to the fact that we all think we must do some sacrifices and cut down on waste.
Thank you very much. We'll take a break on that note. When we return, we have very limited time, and gentlemen, I'm going to keep you strictly. Kweku's been very brief.
He didn't help me with history.
And I must say that when you check the record so far, Kweku's been very brief. Dr. Akoto has been very brief also. We'll be right back, and when we come, I am going to stick to a certain timeline that you have to respect. Other than that, we have very little to do. We'll be right back.
Why would you want to approve of a transaction that shortchanges the Ghanaian people? Is this what Bank of Ghana meant when in July they said they would protect all stakeholders in Merchant Bank Ghana? Why would you bypass First Rand Bank, a safe and experienced bank, and settle for Fortis that has no expertise in managing or running a bank? Where is Fortis' source of financing for this deal? The Ghanaian people have witnessed unprecedented corruption in the last 5 years. The creating, looting, and sharing have been more than enough. After Maybe and Johnson, and Woyomi, and Waterville, and Isophoto, and Sada, and Jida, and Suba, and WikiLeaks, and all the rest, please spare us Fortis. Fortis seeks to acquire 90% shares for 90 million Ghana cedis, leaving SNIT and SIC with 8% and 2% respectively. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most bizarre and fraudulent deal we have witnessed in Ghana ever since Alfred Agbesiwoyome hoodwinked Betty Modi Drisu and swindled the Ghanaian taxpayer for 51 million Ghana cedis for no work done. This unknown entity, Fortis, was registered and incorporated in June 2013, soon after the First Rand Bank deal failed to go through. Their initial capital, as per the Registrar General, is 5 million Ghana cedis. They have no experience in banking as far as we are concerned, and by their capitalization, do not even qualify.
All right, you're welcome back. And you just heard the minority MPP, they were in Parliament, and they have declared without any equivocation that that transaction involving Merchant Bank and SNIT, so to speak, SNIT and the Fortis group is fraudulent and a scam. Dr. Akutose, yes. Where is the evidence?
What information we have out there so far that's been put out by SNIT, Bank of Ghana, and all the key agencies does not give us comfort at all. Why do I say that? It is unusual for Bank of Ghana to give approval when some conditions have not been met. For example, where is the money going to come from? This is something you make a condition precedent, particularly because Fortis Equity Fund was only set up in June for this purpose. They don't have any banking experience. See, think about it. A 5 million CD capitalized equity fund wants to consume a 68 million capitalized bank. The two are different. If the reverse were the case, I could see it. Just imagine...
the reference to the Fortis group being very young, new, and not having experience in banking. See, is that really significant? Is it important?
In banking, what matters is that experience or evidence that you have a plan that will solve the problem you're having. If I want to come and buy a merchant bank, whoever is coming must be able to do a lot of things. Provide technology for banking, bring management expertise for banking. An equity fund is not a bank. So first question is, how come an equity fund, which is not a bank, is going to acquire a bank that has been in existence for long? I'm saying as a conditions precedent.
All it needs is to get the right persons in there.
From where? So I'm saying provide all that information a priori. Bank of Ghana should not go ahead and say, we've given you approval, now go and bring a plan. It should wait till all those conditions present. And due diligence is very important. At least for Rand Bank, 4 or 5 months due diligence went on. What we are hearing is that 1 week's worth of due diligence. How could that be bring you information? You don't even give yourself room to do that. That is worrisome.
You're talking about a company that is only 3 months, is it? And you're calling for how long of due diligence?
No. Because there are other things that you need to do. Where is the money coming from? Let us escrow that money up front, and then you check off. You give them the list. Even the plan that you're going to bring, where is it? It's 2-year, 5-year plan. The key parties involved. Here you have given approval and say, okay, go and bring the information. It is not done that way. Because you see, confidence, look, I was on the board of Merchant Bank, if you want to know. I know what has gone on in there. This type of decision does not help Ghana. I can tell you. If we have been given all this information, that's what I've gone on record. Let us see all that information. If it meets what we think is proper, we have no objection. But no...
The board of SNIT, SIC Life, obviously are also into business. They are investing.
Look,
are you saying that they don't know what they are doing because they know that they are dealing with investment?
If the information they have provided is all they want, then I'm sorry, they don't. Look, when I was on the SNIT board, we spent almost 6-7 years cleaning up, doing repair damage of these type of decisions. We don't want to be going on that path again. Go and look at SNIT's portfolio. This type of thing, if you're not careful, will take us there. Number one, I'm surprised even TUC is now saying that they are going to ask a SNIT board to come and talk to them about the issue about workers. TUC sits on the board of SNIT. What happened? Where is the source of information? How come this is the information SNIT is putting out? Is this all it is? If it is, then it will be a bad deal. It should be. This is pensioners' money.
This is your evidence of the transaction being fraudulent and a scam?
It is unlike what happens in proper central bank. If Bank of Ghana is behaving this way, I'm shocked. That is not how central banks act. You get the information and then you give approval. You don't give approval and say bring the information. That is the reverse.
Dr. Amonibama.
I said it to my brother.
What did you say?
You see, the MPP, I think, has come to the immutable conclusion that if it is about projects for projects, programs for programs, policies for policies, there's no way they can beat the NDC in the 2016 elections.
Convince the ordinary Ghanaian listening why you think it is wiser. For example, listen to this. Why you think it is wiser to do this? While First Rand was prepared to invest 176.4 million Ghana cedis for 75% in Merchant Bank, Fortis is investing 90 million Ghana cedis.
You see, this question is for me to arrogate unto myself, being the spokesperson for SNIT, being the spokesperson for Bank of Ghana, and being the spokesperson for Fortis.
No, just want you to talk as being reasonable.
That is not what I'm going to do here. But what I'm going to do here is to demonstrate to you that the MPP has just decided to throw mud. They have become, permit my saying, for lack of a better word, like rebels without a cause. Anything that they meet in their way, they will strike it, they will hit it. And by so doing, they are even hitting their own people.
The man asked you a question.
Underneath the discussions have been engineers and planners, blah, 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 and then they try to link it to the president. Because the president's brother is a director of engineers and planners. I'm asking here and now that Merchant Bank should publish their debt portfolio and indicate all the entities and the directors that are behind it. That is one. Two, I'm submitting here and now that I'm reliably informed, and even SNIT's statement indicated that KPMG acted as the transactional advisor for SNIT. KPMG is a very credible institution. I do admit that during the Supreme Court case, MPP tried unsuccessfully to punch holes to the credibility of KPMG. I'm saying that if KPMG found anything untoward, we need to know as a people. I have also indicated that SNIT, Fortis, Bank of Ghana, or any of them that will opt to come out there and indicate the facts of this matter, that will also be helpful. I think this is a much more responsible approach than to condemn the transaction, impugn people's credibility, damage the credibility of Merchant Bank, Fortis, and all that, and you end up by saying that if they provide the information and it is credible, we have no objection. If it is information that you are seeking, why don't you say so? The minority in Parliament have every opportunity to invite the Minister for Finance to the floor of Parliament for him to answer questions even relating to this, assuming SNIT doesn't want to speak, assuming Fortis doesn't want to speak, assuming Bank of Ghana doesn't want to speak. But what do we have as of now? SNIT has issued a statement. Yesterday, I heard a statement also out there by Fortis that they will be speaking to this matter. I have said that, look, we will always go for what is in the best interest of Ghana.
Question of best interest of Ghana and investment sense.
Yes.
How does Fortis or SNIT convince the people of Ghana that a company, First Rand, that is ready to bring in 176.4 million is not approved, but one that is bringing in 90 million is approved, and then again First Rand that was ready to collect all the debts.
No. First Rand was not ready to collect all the debts.
How much was
Bank
it?
was going to do that.
No, it was First Rand was going to appoint that independent entity to collect the debt. But in respect of Fortis, they are going to collect 30%, is it? And pass on the remaining to SNIT.
My position, and I maintain that, and I will urge all ministers and government appointees and government spokespersons to maintain that line, that we will not speak for Fortis, we will not speak for SNIT, we will not speak for Bank of Ghana. They must come out and speak for themselves. But look, I have read an analysis that also even indicates that if you dissect the first round deal carefully, it almost comes to a negative transaction because of the way that they were going to handle the debt aspect of merchant bank. Okay? So my point is, if the minority MPP, their view was just to seek answers so that they can come to credible conclusions, was that the path?
I see.
To be damaging the credibilities of SNIT, Bank of Ghana, and all these institutions. Was that the path?
All right.
That is why I have concluded that, look, it's another strategy. Let's throw mud, hoping that it will stick. Their mud will not stick.
Fortis issues a statement and says that Fortis Equity Fund Limited wishes to assure the valued customers and other stakeholders of Merchant Bank Limited that they have taken note of all the various comments and concerns expressed over their acquisition of shares in Merchant Bank. Fortis considers unfortunate that such a normal transaction between a private Ghanaian company and SNIT SIC Life should attract such levels of misrepresentation and misinterpretation of available facts. In accord with and in respecting normal procedural issues related to all such transactions, Fortis will in the next few days address the obvious misunderstandings and misrepresentations presented so far. Should we not shut up and wait for them to bring us what the further and better particulars are?
We'll wait, and I hope it will be soon. They remain too much in the shadows. Too long. It's too long. Yeah. They ought to have been speaking already. But look, the deal should be put on hold for now. Andrea
Wuni is in court seeking that particular relief.
I wish the court grants that injunction. Then the Bank of Ghana must talk.
They gave approval.
There must be a report on the trail of this transaction, a consolidated report. The regulatory agency here is the Bank of Ghana, bottom line. Let them give us an official release on the trail and the basis for the approvals that they have given so far. For all you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong. But in an atmosphere where there are suspicions, perceptions, and arguments and debates, greater transparency is the cure for any mischief out there.
And how do you appreciate these suspicions? Who is supposed to benefit from whatever?
This merchant bank thing is about a year or so long. We've discussed this matter here before, you recall. Aren't we capable people to always just make things so transparent, so accountable, so clear-cut, so that there is less debate and politicization? Facts, figures, evidence, information coming from the regulatory bodies would be appropriate cure for this situation. So I think that to satisfy Ghanaians, this is of huge public interest. So let the information flow. And that is what Bank of Ghana should do. SNIT did something, it's not sufficient. But I think the pinpoint target is Bank of Ghana. Let them tell us why they have approved this thing. We'll move beyond that. We'll check Fortis. Who are they? What are they? What's their track record? It's possible for a group that was formed in June, if it has the right connections, to actually mobilize appropriate financial muscle and the technology to do things. It's possible.
Certainly.
Yes, I know that for a fact. But we need to know.
All right.
No, let me finish. Let me finish. You see, he brought in this. There are two issues. This point, and I find it quite interesting. That's first round brought 90. Is it bigger financial bid? Yeah. That argument, I have to be honest with you, does not hold much water. And it takes me back to Vodafone. And I have the Hansard here. The debate between Dr. Akutose and Dua Jaho in particular. It's here. This same argument was raised, and we told them then, all the arguments we had on this table was that the financial bid on its own is not everything. Exactly. So whether one is higher or one is lower is not the point. It has to be looked within a certain matrix. the technology you bring on, your market reach, and so many other things are put together. So this whole argument that Doajaho raised about Telecom South Africa relative to Vodafone's bid was crushed, and factually, with all the evidence, with recycling, and sometimes these days...
No, it's
not
called
recycled.
No, what it means
Okay,
is that there's
okay.
kind of
I can
shift.
explain something.
Goku, finish.
The same transaction, and there was a similar one, Portugal Telecom and France Telecom. The transaction advisors, France Telecom had higher bid in terms of the financial. Portugal's was lower. But the financial transaction advisors, when they did all the collective analysis, voted for Portugal Telecom.
But let me offer you even more inside information. The South African telecom offer.
Are we going back to...
No, just information so public will know. That offer came after.
Yes, I'm the track
In
here.
a manner that as of now is very dubious.
Indeed, initially, can I finish? Initially, they even had a joint bid with Vodacom.
Yes.
Initially,
Yes,
and they were not
company.
listed.
Exactly.
So the facts are here. But I'm saying that we should try and be consistent on those arguments, because it's not the fact that your bid financially is higher.
Let me hear.
Final point.
Yeah.
This whole engineers and planners thing, I can understand. We do that kind of politics. It's a very petty thing. It was done to Jack's son when there was even no basis for it. It's being done to Brahim because, in any case, when you go into the history, that loan was taken when the brother was not even in government. But see, I've been doing my checks. I think it's important. In the next few days, it will be clear that that E&P's indebtedness is being worked out.
I see. Very interesting.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Access Bank. And you know, they were dealing with Intercontinental Bank to deal with the matter when Access went and took over Intercontinental. So it stalled progress. Now I have seen enough records to show that by December 15th, the E&P would have settled its indebtedness with Merchant Bank.
December 15th of this year.
This year.
Very interesting. Now.
And the plan, everything, the documents are there, the
let me
banks
hear
are
Fifi
dealing
on this. In 3 minutes, how do you look at, what do you have to say about this whole thing?
You know, my natural view of this is simple. Be swift to hear, be slow to speak, be slow to act. Meaning, don't rush into judgment when you haven't seen the whole picture. My initial observation also comes from a position stated by Dr. Okotase, claiming that somehow if you don't have banking experience, you cannot acquire a bank.
I didn't
if
say
you are
that.
an equity fund.
You didn't exactly say
I
that.
never said that.
Something to the effect that how can a small entity acquire a big bank without having a demonstrable track record of being in bank? Is that not what you said?
You go ahead.
I found that very curious. We've been in this country. SNITs. Also, you can call it an equity fund because really they are long-term funds that are in SNITs. SNIT has acquired banks. And SNIT, of course, hasn't got banking experience and has been able to manage some of the most what you call profitable banks in the history of our country. Trust Bank is an example. Trust Bank was acquired by SNIT, and that's why the name changed to Trust Bank. And it became one of the most viable banks, properly managed. Listen, leveraging what you call competences in today's world is not a problem. There are funds that are acquiring what you call higher technology, what you call investment, like, for example, telecom or even mining. You don't need to have expertise in mining or telecom before you can acquire. No,
Right.
you are an equity portfolio. You can get into that acquisition and hire a particular group of people too. And I think we could, completely nail it when you explained that. Listen, the issue about how much is being proposed, this is being run. And I find it also curious that the same MPP that not long ago was criticizing the round band, investment. The whole press conference, attacking that whole thing. Today, suddenly you are praising the round band and creating an impression that it was the most wonderful and the most immaculate investment that we could have seen.
You're still here on Newsfile. I'm still here on
Not to
Newsfile.
provide-
I'm Samson Ladi, and my shirt is provided by Latida. Now, be on the top of the fashion world with the latest in Latida's men and ladies designs in African print. Gentlemen, someone is paying for this show.
We're not giving
So-
us the shirts.
Complaining about this.
Oh, gee. Okay, so you need to look good and sharp, and that is what Latida prides itself in. Simply call them on 026 56 50 918. That is 026 56 50 918 or 020 433 6444 020 433 6444 for your orders, and they will deliver them swiftly, very cheap and the best. Affordability, of course, is their hallmark. Let me remind you also that there is MTN Magic Voice that you need to hook onto. It's a very interesting experience. You need to have it. So with Magic Voice, you can choose to speak to your friends and family from among 3 funny voices: an animated cartoons voice, the Husky King's voice, or a shrill female voice. To make a magic call or voice call, all you need to do is to prefix the recipient's number with 518 and simply send. That's all there is to it. Magic Voice works on both prepaid and postpaid numbers and comes at normal call rates. So if you don't want it, just send stop to 518 and you will unsubscribe. Remember, with Magic Voice, it is not what you say, but how you say it. Welcome to the new world.
Can I now support?
Yet do that in a minute.
Sure. Thank you very much. I think that to say that you do not have to compare the quotations from 2 different companies that are interested in an outfit that is being sold, whether wholly or partially, is in the right direction. But if you dissect it, you can come also to the conclusion that what were some of the inherent opportunities that were going to be made available to, let's say, Vodafone, and could that same opportunity be made available to any other company, and you can extend that to other transactions. So we need always to dissect it. Specifically, in the Vodafone GT transaction, on the 3rd of July 2008, GT was owing then Giftel 10.9 million Ghana cedis. That would have been part of the indebtedness of GT. And so Vodafone should have or may have taken 70% of this 10.9 million Ghana cedis.
Okay, finish up.
Okay?
Yeah.
Dr. Akoto wrote a letter of comfort that the government of Ghana, acting through Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, acknowledges a debt of 10.9 million Ghana cedis owed to Giftel by Ghana Telecom for the period 2002 to 2008. Pursuant to the imminent divestiture of Ghana Telecom, Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, representing the sole shareholder and acting on behalf of Government of Ghana, hereby confirms that it will arrange for the repayment of the said amount. Title, Letter of Comfort, signed, Honorable Dr. Akoto Osei, MP.
Yeah,
Certainly, this is
I'm coming.
right by you, yeah.
This is how it impacts. What this means is that straight away, a debt of 10.9 million Ghana cedis, 70% of it is knocked off what Vodafone is coming to take.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Sese, 30 seconds,
that is
please.
why I say you need to be dissecting.
Thank you.
To find out
30
what were some
seconds.
of the comforts
30 seconds.
that will be made available to this
Gentlemen,
company.
okay, you see, the author of this letter is right here. Right. The author of this letter is right here. Dr. Mane. Right. Go ahead.
Obviously,
No, I gave you too much time to react to that. You did. Fifi, you have to stop that because it's not helpful.
Please, it's not. These cheap shots, he's right, as a Minister of Communication, he's trying to use the letter as if I've done something wrong.
I'm not saying I've done anything wrong. I'm saying you need to dissect.
Dr. Manibwa, please, we are running out of time. Please, go ahead.
This will get to
Go ahead.
The point, what you are saying, confirms the fact that this type of information that should be part of the information that Senate has put out. It's not been made to the
Was
public.
this made available
to us?
to the South African company?
Listen. You won't get anywhere when you have made a statement, have kept quiet, then you want to keep arguing.
Symmetrical information is important.
Okay.
Let's go.
But I think you've made a critical rebuttal.
That's a point. Please, when you go on a program and you talk, allow people to talk.
We have done so.
No. When you were talking, you said that.
We do.
No, right now.
Okay,
That's not fair. You read a letter. Use my name. When I'm responding, then
you can respond.
How will people hear?
Oh, but you have cut it on several occasions.
On this letter, you don't do that.
No, he hardly does.
But you can have the next 4 minutes.
He hardly does.
You are not the host.
Okay, thank you.
It's unfair.
But your rebuttal effectively has been done, isn't it?
Well, let's go ahead.
Okay,
I don't have anything.
thank you. Now, start with you, Abdul Malik. If you can do just a minute. Justice Dateban is going to probe the WikiLeaks as far as the aspect about judicial tampering is concerned. The Attorney General, who is supposed to be a member of the panel, has recused herself for possible conflict of interest. What do you say briefly about that?
Well, of course, the committee was a standing committee, isn't it? Appointments and disciplinary committee. It's not a new committee formed. And the AG, by virtue of her office, was already a member.
Yes.
And
a
the
member
matter
of the Judicial Council.
Yes, but it's appointment and
That's
disciplinary
right,
committee. And so the matter was referred to that committee. Out of her own conscience, based on her own conscience, she decides to recuse herself. That's nothing wrong with
Credit
that.
to her.
Indeed, the chairman of that committee too, Justice Julius Ansan, who was part of the panel, also recused himself. That also makes sense to me. Bottom line, I think it's in the long-term interest of the judiciary that this matter is dealt with. And I suspect, that's my own feeling, that it will end up in a situation where the gossip or the allegation cannot be substantiated. It would help Oyelita, it would help the judiciary, but I think it would damage the Madam Vicky Hammer. That's my candid opinion. That's the way I see things going.
As peddling untruth?
Yes.
Or something that does not exist?
I believe it will be an interest to appear. I read somewhere that she might decline invitation. Nobody can compel her.
It's in her interest to appear.
But it's in her interest to appear. She's not going to be able to authenticate her allegation. Oyelita will deny flatly. The judiciary will get purged of this whole malicious allegation. And bottom line, the ultimate loser is Vicky Hammer.
Doc.
Where are we here? Credible elections were run. MPP decided to contest it with what I would say spurious information. On December 9, they were saying 36,000 votes had been added. December 10, 53,000 votes had been added. December 11, 2012, 100,000 votes had been added. December 14, 1 million votes had been added by Sir John. December 15, 150,000 votes. It had dropped from 1 million to 150,000. That is why we are where we are. But if Kweku is talking about it will purge the judiciary, I don't think that this single tape is the only piece of information available. I do not know the remit of the work of the committee.
It's extended beyond Vicky Hammer's
Yes, perhaps
allegation.
they may have to.
Is it?
Yeah, I read that it's not just about that.
If that is the case,
that's
once they
interesting.
look,
I'm sure I read something
once
to
they
that
look
effect.
into
Officially.
all these pieces of information, then we can come to that conclusion. But I sincerely do not believe that, considering the caliber of judges who sat on this case, any one of them acted beyond what his convictions and professionalism dictated that they did.
Okay.
Anyway, they found the $3.5 million, and they've also found out that some people chopped some money in it. Those people don't belong to any government.
I see. Okay, gentlemen, I'm
I'm
sorry, but we are unable to pick your comments on this because we have run out of time.
In fact, we have recused. We have
run out of time.
This is smuggling.
Thank you very much. You have been listening to. You have been listening to Abdul Malik Kweku Baku Jr., who is the editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Dr. Omane Boama, who is the communications minister. You've also heard Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei, who is the ranking member of finance in Parliament, and he is a former a former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. You've also heard Honorable Fifi Kwete, who is the Minister of State at the Presidency in charge of financial and allied institutions. I am Samson Ladi Ayanini. Have a good afternoon.